Good morning, everybody. We are going to get started with our State Charter School Board meeting today on April 14th. You may have been a little confused by all of the recent snowy weather, thinking that we were not in April, but we are. So welcome to our meeting this morning. We're excited to have everybody with us. We've got some great items on our agenda that we'll be going over. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please stand and repeat with me, that would be great.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our next agenda item is public comment. We do have a couple of public comments today. We welcome you and are happy to receive your comments. Just as by way of information for everybody here, public comment is where members of the public can come, and you have 3 minutes. We'll ask Joanne, our board secretary, or Director Lambert to keep time for that. This is not a time for discussion. We receive the comments that you have for us, and then we will move on. So our first public comment will come from Jonathan Bejarano, and you're welcome to come up to the mic and push the speak button. When it's red, you'll be able to provide your comments, and then after that, we will have Chanel de Rieu. I hope I said that right. I do speak French, but I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Mr. Bejarano, 3 minutes. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I wasn't going to come, but I got an email that says, hey, just come. So I did. So I just really quickly wanted to kind of appreciate charter schools and what they do. I don't know, I didn't know a lot about charter schools like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But I just decided to kind of take ownership and just dig in. And there's a lot that goes on. I got my degree from the University of Utah in business. And I was like, hey, I need to do something with that, right? And so it seems like it's kind of turned into education. So I do teach like programming and things like that. And it's just kind of a hobby. But I just wanted to speak about one thing that I find that is kind of concerning, but I think is being worked on, which is that a charter school is almost like a company, right? But it's public. And there are people that are appointed to be on the board, and they have a very important role to fill in bridging that gap between this kind of business and the community at large. And one thing that's kind of troubling to me is when I look at the most diverse charter schools around that have, minority or diverse students that are being served upwards of 50%. There's about like 11 of them. When I look at those boards, only 23% of them are diverse in their composition versus the students, which are 67% diverse. So my background, my dad's from Peru, and I just wanted to share that if we really believe in choice, we need to consider these people that perhaps don't engage in the traditional way unless they're invited, or might not think about serving on a board because they don't feel maybe necessarily welcome. So I think it's very important to not try to look for the right person, that's going to be in your charter school board, but think of it as an opportunity. And that's what I'd like to kind of see more, is that everyone can be welcome on a charter school board, and it's an opportunity to maybe engage with the Hispanic community, right? Having a board member that could reach out to those people, I think would really help charter schools with their retention, with recruiting, and without spending a lot of advertising money. Anyway, I sent you an email with the statistics if you're interested, with the spreadsheet, and I really appreciate what you guys do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Bejarano. We will move to Ms. de Rieu. She was going to be online today rather than in person, and so we'll wait just a second to see if she's going to join online. Sounds like the request came in a little bit later, and we're not quite sure if she's going to be here. In the meantime, let's move on. If we can't find her online. Yes, and Ms. Daria, if you are listening or watching after the fact, you are more than welcome to come to our next meeting in May. We would welcome your comments at that point. Okay, we will move on to our board member thought, which I have the pleasure of giving today. And I'm going to share a personal story. A couple of years ago, my family was discussing their spirit animals. I don't know if you have discussions like that around your dinner table. Yes. Okay, Ms. Daria is here. Let's go ahead and have her provide public comment. You'll have 3 minutes to share your thoughts during our public comment portion, and then we'll move forward after that. Are you there? Is she online? I wonder if she's muted.
Hi, this is Chanel. I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me
I
now?
can hear something.
Almost.
Ms. Daria, we can hear that you're saying something, but we can't, the volume is really low. Hold on just 1 second. We'll
Is that
get this
any
figured
better?
out for you. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. It looks like the speaker was off in our boardroom. So if you would not mind, we welcome you for public comment. You have
Thank
3
you.
minutes, and this is a time for us to receive your comment, and then we'll move on with our meetings. So please go ahead. You've got 3 minutes. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm so sorry about that. This has all kind of been in last minute, within 24 hours planning for me. So I actually don't have a whole lot of a speech prepared. I do want to say, though, that I do not think that I don't think that Vanguard Academy should be shut down. But what I do think, I think they absolutely need more outside influence. And yeah, so I'm sorry. You're welcome to ask me any questions. I have only a few pointers that I wanted to mention, but the biggest things I think that the biggest parts or the most important staff positions I think that should be external member or like someone who is not affiliated with polygamy at all are the health ones like gym and counseling. And I have no idea, honestly. I haven't looked at the list. I don't know if I even have access to that, who the staff members all are. But my biggest concern is what's going on with the staff right now and how many and what percentage of the staff is affiliated with the group. And I actually recently, yesterday, looked in some of my digital files. I have several different photos linking Charles Reynolds to Paul Kingston. I don't know much about the Jessups dude. Sorry, I can't even remember his first name. I'm sorry. And anyway, I kind of just feel like I'm rambling. I don't know if I've used up my minutes. I don't feel like I need a whole lot more unless you guys have any questions.
Thank you very much for your comments. During public comment, we receive comments from the public, but it's not time designated on the agenda for a back and forth discussion. So you are welcome to contact staff, and we really appreciate you being here and providing your thoughts. Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
Can I say one more thing though?
Sure.
I just want to add that right before I heard you guys say my name as I'm watching it live, that I read an email saying that I wouldn't be granted permission. So I'm apologize. I'm pretty scattered right now. Anyways, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all that you're doing. Hopefully this meeting goes well.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not sure what happened with that email, but we're happy to receive your public comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, we will move to our board member thought. I hope you had a couple of minutes to think through and that you came up with a spirit animal that might represent yourselves. Again, I don't know what your dinner table conversations look like, but this was ours this day. My snuggly kid decided that she was a panda bear, and my prickly kid decided that she would either be a porcupine or a hedgehog, so they were very appropriate to their personalities. And I wanted to be a lion or a tiger. I'd even settle for a domestic house cat. So as we were going through, my husband, he was adamant that his spirit animal was a squirrel. And we all laughed because squirrels are funny, but then we saw his face and he was dead serious, and we asked him to explain why, and he said, well, squirrels prepare. They save up for the winter. They squirrel food away. They're fast. They can run up high to gain perspective of things on the ground that others may not see. Squirrels jump and take risks. They chitter to protect their offspring, and if you cross my husband with my kids, you'll see that that's very appropriate. And frankly, they're adorable. I was fascinated by his description, and I suddenly understood that when we tried to judge squirrels by tiger standards or eagles by frog standards, we're using the wrong measuring sticks. I thought of all the students that we serve on the State Charter School Board and that our schools serve, who each have different paths, different life paths, different goals, different skill sets. And I was proud of the work that we do to acknowledge the individual and to create pathways to success according to their individual needs. Some of our students in the charter community are college-bound, and nothing will stop them. Others are figuring things out and are content to head toward gainful employment. Some need additional support and time just to reach the graduation finish line. The beautiful thing about our schools and our students is that the educators and counselors and paras and staff and administrators are customizing the educational experience for our students by recognizing their strengths and coaxing them to do and be a little better each day. So the next time I am concerned about something that's happening, I'm going to think a moment about that person's strengths instead, and perhaps indulge in imagining their potential spirit animal to help me bring my perspective into focus. And I would invite all of us to do the same, because if we judge squirrels by tiger standards, that the result is not appropriate to the skills of a squirrel. Okay, we will move into, thank you. Thank you. We will move into our board chair report. You have the agenda for today's meeting. You know how things are going to go. I wanted to just give a quick update on what May's meeting and June's meeting would look like. In May's meeting, we will be doing a strategic planning exercise. Dr. Bowles, Vice Chair Bowles, is going to be leading us in that. We will also be engaging in board leadership elections, and I will ask Director Lambert to go over what that will look like in just a second. In our June meeting, we will be attending a bees game, and Director Lambert has additional information on that as well, which sounds like a lot of fun. And other than the crazy 17th winter that we're experiencing right now, that is all that I have for my board chair report, and we'll turn it over to Director Lambert. And if you'll start with the board elections and the bees game, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. So first off, board elections. Usually we would hold these a couple months later, but I don't know if you all are aware, but Chair Tonks is finishing up her second term, which is typically board members only serve 2 terms, and so that will end in June. And so we will need to elect a new board chair and hold board elections. And so I believe we're going to do that next month at the beginning of the meeting. And so anyone interested, please send your interest to myself. I can tell you I've already received one individual, well, I guess it's okay to, so Vice Chair Bowles has already expressed his interest, if the board wants him to run for the chair, and Member Phillips has already expressed her interest to run as vice chair. However, it is open to any board members to and their interest. So that will be done in May. In June, what we've wanted to do for actually a couple of years, but COVID, seems like I say that way too often. So COVID happened, so we haven't been able to, but with our implementation of really getting into the comprehensive reviews, we wanted to be able to celebrate schools who do well on the comprehensive reviews and to have it just not have them come and present them with a certificate, though that's wonderful and amazing as well, but to have an opportunity where we can truly celebrate with them. I believe that there's also opportunity where it can be like a charter day. So we can offer that to all charters where I believe they can get discounted tickets, correct? And it will just kind of be announced. It is a day game, afternoon game. It starts at noon. We have reserved where we'll hold at the actual Bees Center in the morning our board meeting, and then we'll have lunch. It will be like barbecue type stuff. And we will celebrate with the schools who have done well on the comprehensive reviews. So as you know, we don't do every single school every year. We do 1/5 of our schools. So, you know, you may know of some really great charters that you won't see there. It's because we aren't doing, we aren't looking at all the charters. It's about a fifth of the charters. But we will get to celebrate with them and be able to do that just as a, celebration. Dr. Williams, do you have anything that I forgot on this?
No, one of the benefits of this event space is that it is also outside. So that's kind of one of the nice things about, you know, who knows what's going to happen with COVID and with sickness. So that's kind of why we chose this, that there's some really good opportunities there so that we can still have this event even if circumstances change.
Unless, of course, it's the 18th winter.
Unless it's really bad winter in June.
It is a smaller space, and so not only staff who are presenting at that meeting will be there. It's not as big as this room. So, but just so you know, we'll get you if you don't know where the stadium is, we'll get you the exact address and everything, and where to go once you get there. So bring your baseball caps and enjoy baseball. Just so you know, I'm not a baseball fan, but I got outvoted, so. Anything else you want me to say on that? Okay. So we'll go into my director's report. As always, I'll start with the data, and then I'll get to the fun stuff. So this last month, we had 9 separate trainings. 8 were by staff and board, 1 by USBE that we hosted. And that was the Tableau training where we had 31 attendees and then 31 additional views afterwards. We also may have had some of our vendors offer trainings, but we didn't have that data from them. Again, we had the director's monthly meeting. We had 59 attendees with 29 additional views. Board member monthly meeting. We had a teacher training. Member Olson gave a bylaws training as well, and that kind of came out of just a need that we found with our schools. Just in total, over the last month, it was 339 total attendees. Now, some of those were probably duplicates, but that's just the total. And plus, we went out to 2 governing boards and did individual trainings. So a little more than around 350 trainings points this last month. Oversight. We had 15 new complaints, and we closed 9 of either the new or previously opened ones. Compliance monitoring, you'll see that there's kind of a weird math there. We opened up 1 new, but we closed 67. Those were prior ones. As you know, that after the financial audits come out, we open up a bunch of those reviews, that anything that may have dinged on our metrics, we look into to see if there's a concern. And so that's why you had the number 67 that were closed. Same thing with the notice of concern, that we had opened quite a few a couple of months ago. ago. And so this is just us being able to work through them with the schools. And so we had only one new one this last month, but we resolved 20. We continue to have 5 schools on and no schools on probation. Visits, we had 23 visits this last month. 13 were in person and 10 we're still doing virtual, which is useful. Some of those visits were, we had one of our portfolio managers do kind of like a tour in Washington County of our schools down there, so that we are trying to, now that COVID's not completely over, but is winding down, we're able to get out more in person. Again, there's lots of really great things that we achieve with those visits, and we're just going to keep those going. So let's talk about a couple of good news. The governor gives out medals annually, and there's a medal for science and technology in education, and this has been awarded since 1987. And what it says is it recognizes the distinguished service, significant achievements, and positive economic impact of individuals and companies to the state of Utah and beyond in the fields of science and technology. And I am very happy to report that one of our own, Kelly Booth, the director at New Ames, she was awarded the Governor's Medal for Science and Technology in K-12 education, which is quite a feat, and just really great to be able to recognize some of the really great good that our charter schools are doing, not just for their students, but for the state in general. And I'll just read what it said with the award. It said, under the direction of Kelly Booth, New Ames has earned a respected reputation as a premier STEM high school in Utah. During her tenure as executive director, science offerings have increased, providing more concurrent enrollment, AP courses, and greater health occupation opportunities, and the students' test scores have improved, which is also saying a lot because they started out pretty well to begin with. Faculty, staff, parents, and students all respect her abilities. She's mindful of economic driving forces and the skills students need to succeed. So just want to congratulate Kelly, and I believe it's well-deserved. And I believe Vice Chair Bowles has a connection to New Ames, and I know that he helped start New Ames. So this is a charter school that is great, and we're very happy for them. There is another honor that we have. This one's for a student. So last month, I talked about the Springville Museum of Art's, the high school art show. Yes, so USBE chooses some of the paintings or artwork done by the students and purchased 4 of them. And one of them, it was from Tucker Deegan. I hope I'm saying his last name right. He is from American Leadership Academy. His art teacher is Derek Hegsted. Now, I cannot pronounce what it's called in Japanese. The title is in Japanese, but what it means is point of view. And when he described, he came and presented to the Board of Education about his artwork. And what he said is that this is him as a freshman, and he's kind of imagining his future and thinking about, will he be a professional artist? And so what he's looking towards is, a street in New York. And so we will get to see, and finally I get to show one of the things that are hanging, and it's a charter. I've been waiting for that for a long time, so I'm very happy to share that with you. And that's my director's report.
That's fantastic, exciting news. All right, let's do our consent calendar items. It contains our March meeting minutes, our monthly budget report, and then, as you may recall, we provided all of our schools flexibility in their charter agreements through the end of this school year to meet the needs of the pandemic and also to test out innovations in remote or online education. And if they wanted to continue those after this year, we agreed that we would grant amendments to any school who wanted to continue those if they could show positive results and student outcomes. So New Ames has implemented a blended program where the core subjects continue to be taught in person, but there's more flexibility for online for the electives. and they've been able to show that they met the requirements that we as the State Charter School Board set forth for this amendment. And so that is one of the items on our consent calendar as well. American Leadership Academy has also worked with our staff and authorizing committee to sign a new charter agreement that incorporates Exhibit A in place of their entire charter application, and the authorizing committee has recommended this amendment to the full board for approval. So at this point, I will look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent.
Okay, we have a motion,
The consent calendar.
motion by member Smith. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
And a second by member Bassett. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. I failed to recognize member Olson, who is joining us remotely today. Thank you for being here with us, Eric.
Thanks for having me, Chair Tonk. Sorry I'm remote today. Love to be with you in person.
We feel the same way. All right, our next agenda item is our spotlight, which we love hearing about. Today, we have Freedom Preparatory Academy here, and Dr. William Evans will be doing a presentation about their graduation rate. Welcome, Freedom Prep.
Yes.
Freedom Prep, would you like to come up to the chairs here?
While they're coming up, I will just kind of go forward with my presentation and talk about a little bit of data and some information we have on the school. So this month, we are talking about graduation rates. Now, this is data that we actually collected earlier in the year. This comes from last academic year, so SY21. We get this for every LEA that has a diploma, so this excludes any LEA that, of course, doesn't. We also include multiple graduation types, so there's multiple certificates that are included in this, different degree groups, and we've taken out any types of groups that aren't factored into this, such as students who don't graduate or that are dropouts or anything like that. And so this year, or this month, we get to honor Freedom Preparatory Academy for their graduation rate. A little bit of background about Freedom Prep. They opened in SY4, so 2004 was their first school year. I believe, They are a pre-K-12 with campuses in Vineyard, Provo, and Washington, I believe are the three, Their total LEA enrollment right now stands at 1998. That is not a date. That is our enrollment. I had to keep looking at that, and every time I was like, why did I put this year in here? No, that's the student enrollment. Board Chair Carrie McConnell, Executive Director Lynn Herring, and then Matt Fulmer is the principal of the high school of the Provo campus. And I think we've got everybody here. Matt is right there. Graduation rates for the last 5 years for Freedom Preparatory Academy include 100% for 2021, 97.83% for 2020, 90% in 2019, 75% in 2018, and 94.87% in 2017. And then in the background here, you can see this is one of the foyers in their building. They just have, I really like this photo. This is all their graduating class, just photos of all of their students, which I think is a really great way to not only honor their students, but also to keep the tradition kind of alive in their school and to make sure that all of their other students recognize that graduation is a focus for everybody at the school. A couple other pictures that their administration shared with me that I really liked about the campus. Everybody here clearly busy and working towards getting their degrees, and then some fun graffiti on the wall that I just love seeing. I love seeing graffiti. Dream big, you don't ever know what, oh my gosh, and I couldn't remember this one. If you never try, you will never be. So I love that. And I will turn the time over to Freedom Prep.
Okay, thank you guys for being here. Will you just introduce everybody you've got with you and let us know who's here?
Good morning, and thank you for inviting us to join you today. Chairwoman Tonks, Vice Chair Bowles, members of the board and staff. We really appreciate the recognition that you've awarded to us, and we're happy to be here to present. I actually would like to turn the time over to our COO, Buddy Ivy, who was the secondary principal for numerous years and has really spearheaded what you see in results over the past few years. And he will kind of carry on here and introduce the rest of the of our participants today, and we're just happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay. I want to say I'm really excited to be here, but the truth is I'm really nervous. And I all the way up here, I was thinking about why have I been so nervous about this? And the truth is, this is my life's work. This is my passion, right? And how do you highlight your passion in 10 minutes and do it justice? But we're really going to try today. So, first of all, I want to, first of all, thank you, each one of you on the board, and for the charter office staff for giving us an opportunity to be recognized for our graduation rates and to have a chance to be highlighted, because we work really, really hard at achieving our mission and our vision, and it's gratifying to be recognized for something that you work so hard at. I will preface a little bit, as you looked at, I appreciate the data and the things that you have there, and Mr. Keith Powers, who's one of our guidance counselors, will I'm sure talk more about this, but I can confidently tell you that when you look at those numbers, those are percentages of people who graduated with their cohort. But I can honestly sit here in front of you and tell you, we know that every single one of our students, since we started the secondary, has received a diploma. Sometimes it was 2 years afterwards. But in fact, you'll get to meet Mr. Keith Powers here. He's a bulldog. And he doesn't lose track of kids when they leave our school. And so we can confidently say that we know that every one of our kids has either received a diploma. I think we have 2 GEDs in that mix too, but it's something we're really proud of. So first of all, I'll have the student, oh, they handed them out already. See, I told you I'm nervous. I don't even know what they're doing.
Introduce everybody.
I will. I'm now receiving directions to help me because I'm nervous. So I have this full prepared speech here. So no, yes. First of all, let me talk to you about what we just handed to you. This is what I call a lookbook. Really, it's a snapshot of who Freedom Preparatory Academy is. It's a tool that we use actually with our stakeholders to communicate our mission, our vision, what our values are. And we really feel like if you open that up and you look through the pages, it just gives you a quick kind of picture of who Freedom Prep is. I think I would call it internal marketing, right? When we hire a new employee, this is something that we put in their hands so we can start the conversation of what we truly believe is best for the education of our students. So you can look at that and see a picture of Freedom Prep, but at the very core and the very root of everything that we believe is this absolute passion, this absolute belief that within every single one of our students is this tremendous potential to be wildly successful. And I can tell you honestly, I've never been let down from that belief. We truly honestly believe that every one of our students is a leader, and we teach them that they're the CEO of themselves, right? And that when we give them the right scaffolding and we give them the right opportunity and then we get out of the way, they do far more, they exceed far more than anything that we could have ever done. So as I talk about that, I'll go ahead and I want to tell you about some of the people that we have here with us today. And then I'll be quiet and really let those people who are really responsible for our success have a chance to talk. We have our intervention specialist. Claire Miranda is here. She's our intervention specialist. You've already met Mr. Matt Fulmer. Chris Helvey is our business manager. And then we have 2 of our school counselors here as well, Amanda Gabbitas and Mr. Keith Powers. And then We also have 3 of our students that are here today, and I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves because that's where the fun thing is, because it's a chance where I can give you all these papers and tell you about our mission and our vision, and that's all really awesome. It's really good stuff, but it's just programs. It's just words. It's about people, right? And when you meet these guys, this is where I get to prove to you that everything I say is really true about what we do at Freedom Prep. And so they're here today. Each one of them is here from one of our highly effective our different leadership groups that we have within our school. They're here representing them, and they'll talk to you about the work that they do and what success really looks like for a student at Freedom Prep. So first of all, to begin, I'm going to give Mr. Keith Powers a minute to share a few comments. He'll talk to you a little bit about our method, our procedures, and how we do the things that we do that have led to the graduation rates that we're really proud of. And then we're going to turn over to our students.
Thank you. Keith Powers. Bulldog. That's not my spirit animal as I see myself. I'm just a teddy bear. Anyway, it's not about me. I was hired 9 years ago, and when I first heard of Freedom Preparatory Academy, I don't know about you guys, but that preppy title kind of skewed my vision. And that's not what we're about. We don't have the elite of the elite students. We're a diverse community, and ethnically, financially, and all those kinds of things. And as Mr. Ivy said, it comes down not so much to programs and fancy words, titles for these programs we have. It comes down to the people. On our campus, we have 6th through 12th grade, and we have teaching moments every week in a class called Impact. It's kind of like an advisory time. And from the time they're in 6th grade, they have the opportunity to learn about education. And hopefully our goal is to make learning, to make school cool again, and to have them interested in not only coming to school, but to learn. And we talk a lot about post-high school opportunities, whether they be university, trade school, military, whatever. We try to promote those kinds of activities and interest. I don't think we have extra or unique programs. We might title them a little different, but it comes down to people. I think I like to look at it is we create the attitude or the emphasis on accountability of the teachers and the students. We start from 9th grade when the credits in GPA really start to count towards graduation. We emphasize there's going to be credit recovery needs, and we'll start from 9th grade on that we're serious about this and we want to help you. We have safety nets. Another important thing is relationships, being connected to an adult or more than one in the building. And we really stress that, not only in the impact class and the regular curriculum, but extracurricular activities, student council, Latinos in Action are some of the groups that we have at our school. And we just foster that kind of attitude. And like Mr. Ivy said, I look at those numbers and I'm thinking, wait a minute, if students will commit and stay with us through all 4 years of high school, they will earn a diploma. That's been our goal, and that's happened. This is our 7th graduating class, 2022. I'm not sure what else you want to hear from me, but it comes down to the people. We have faculty, staff members who connect with the students, and I really sincerely believe the students know that we care about them and that we'll do whatever we can to hold them accountable, but also to provide opportunities for success.
You guys can each introduce themselves and talk about their leadership team.
My name is Janelle Dadson, and I'm the Spirit Chair on FPA's Student Council. And the goal of Student Council is to represent the student body and to organize fun service activities, dances, and other activities for the students. A few projects and activities that we've organized in the past include a culture night that we had this year to raise money for our humanitarian trip to Mexico. We've also had a few dances this year. One of them was a multi-school dance that we had with Merit, and that was super fun. We got to meet some cool people. And one really fun thing I get to help with is with school spirit. One way we promote school spirit is by giving spirit points to students who come to after-school activities like games or plays. And the grade that earns the most points gets a fun field trip at midterm. And this really helps students come and participate in our fun after-school events. And our organizations also just really try to help make the school a better place. These three organizations, Student Council, National Honor Society, and Latinos in Action, have each taken turns helping our lunch staff with lunch duty, we call it, and we help serve the lunch and we clean the tables after the students eat. And the lunch staff is always super grateful. And in December, all three of the organizations also held a toy drive, and we were able to gather a lot of toys to donate to a children's hospital, and that was really fun. And then I asked a few of my fellow students what their favorite things about Freedom were, and a lot of them said they love how small the class sizes are, which is something I love as well. We're all able to get really great one-on-one time with our teachers and get any extra help we need anytime we need it. Many students also said that they enjoy the opportunities that we have to participate in leadership, service, and sports and other extracurriculars. Because the school is pretty small, it's easy to, make a team or get cast in a play, and this helps us have the opportunity to develop new talents. And then one of my favorite things about Freedom is the people. I've been there since 7th grade, and I've been able to make great friends every single year, and I'm super grateful for that. And I'm grateful that I was able to kind of share this about my school. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Tyler Breeding. I'm the president of the National Honor Society, of which I'm representing. In the National Honor Society, we strive to build character in our members, provide service in our community, encourage leadership throughout our organization, and promote scholarship within our ranks. In the 2021 through 2022 school year, the NHS, among other things, has organized a used book sale, put on a Veterans Day assembly to honor our local servicemen, decorated the campus for the Christmas season, and has regularly cleaned the school on a weekly basis. Furthermore, we have plans to host a sustainability week for our alumni, along with additional designs to run a STEM camp for elementary schoolers, both in the Freedom Prep school system and the surrounding community. The latter is to be achieved with significant contribution from our affiliate organizations of Latinos in Action and the Student Council. Nonetheless, because of the nature of the National Honor Society, it is our innate duty to serve the school and to work to make it a better place. To do this, we have teamed up with LIA and Student Council to help serve lunches in the cafeteria, as my predecessor covered. Although it did not seem like much at first, we later learned that our daily service was of invaluable worth to our lunch staff. Note that this is only one example of how we have enhanced the environment at Freedom Academy, not just as 3 separate organizations, but as one single entity. To wit, the National Honor Society has proved itself to be both pivotal to maintaining FPA tradition, and it has shown itself to play a crucial role in nourishing and contributing to school culture.
Okay, so I'm Ana Gutierrez, and I'm representing Latinos en Acción at Freedom Prep. Latinos en Acción is a group that helps one another and helps our community in any way possible. This year, our group has helped out our community by helping our lunch ladies serve lunch and clean the tables, as Janelle and Tyler have both said. We've also helped elementary students succeed academically, kindergarten through 5th grade. We tutor middle school students after school, make small appreciation gifts for our secondary teachers for their hard work and supporting us at our events. We have given blankets to the homeless, raked leaves around our neighborhood, donated toys to a children's hospital, and supported our military family. Our latest and upcoming event is a 5K run we are hosting to raise money for the Underground Railroad. In addition to our community service, we treat ourselves once a month for helping others in our community, like watching movies together or creating team building experiences. We fund our activities with a team that organizes and teaches our students how to create events such as a yard sale, thrift shop, or sell concessions. I interviewed a couple of our seniors that have been at Freedom for more than 4 years about their experience at Freedom or their experience with our teachers. This is what they proceeded to say. The teachers are understanding, they genuinely want you to succeed. Each and every teacher goes out of their way to help you understand step by step what you don't understand. Not only are they supportive about schoolwork, but your life outside of school to make sure you can trust them if you can't trust any of your peers. They help you stay on top of your schoolwork and push you to do and be the best you can. Thank you.
See, I told you they're amazing, huh? So yeah, there's so many other things that we could talk about and tell about that we're pretty passionate. I mean, by the time a kid graduates from Freedom Prep, they will have toured at least 6 universities. Our goal is to connect every kid with some type of service project, at least one every year. There's just so many of those kind of things, but that's who we are, and those are the things that we believe. So if there are any questions or anything, these guys would be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much for being here. Board members, any questions for Freedom Prep? That was an excellent presentation. I'm so glad that you brought the students. I think that's our favorite part of what we do, so thank you for that. Questions? I have a question then. What I would like to know is, I actually have 2 questions. For your graduation rate, you mentioned when students come to your school and if they stay with you for all 4 years, what is the number or percentage of incoming students during grades 9 through 12 that haven't been with you that whole time? How many do you have? Is it a small percentage or more? Or?
If I understand your question, I don't think I have exact numbers of who comes in after 9th grade. If they stay with us and start their junior and senior year, they're going to earn their diploma. Do the credit evaluations, of course, like all schools do, and find out what their needs are, and then we'll encourage them on summer school, intervention classroom where they can work. It's kind of like a study hall where they can work online and catch up.
Okay.
When COVID hit, we created a separate school called Freedom Preparatory Virtual Academy. And we had several students involved in that. I think over 45 or so high school level kids were taking at least one or more, several full-time virtual students. Besides the online working with on-campus teachers, they were committed to virtual. And we just this year we'll have, I think it's a total of 4 once May comes that will have earned their diploma virtually.
That's excellent. Thank you for that information.
A couple of them never have set foot on campus other than come get their Chromebook.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, Director Lambert, go ahead and I'll save my last question.
Mine isn't a question. I just wanted to direct to the students because I have seen so many adults and myself. I mean, we get nervous talking to this board because it's a little nerve-wracking. And you guys were so poised. I just was very impressed with you and just want to thank you. And I look forward to seeing great things from you. I mean, maybe someday we'll see you on the TV giving great speeches or something. But you guys are awesome, and I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Lambert. And my last comment was along those lines as well, just how poised each of you students is. And your team members talked about the education, the academic pieces. You guys, however, spoke about the service that you're providing to others and the connection that you're making with other students, with your teachers at the school, and how you have one-on-one time. And it seems to me that your graduation rate, it's a nice statistic, and as Mr. Ivey mentioned, it's numbers, right? But when we see your faces, we see that you are articulate. We see that you are prepared to walk across that graduation stage with portable skills that are going to serve you well way after you get your diploma and leave Freedom Preparatory Academy. And if you have anything to add to that, or an example of, oh yeah, this is what that looks like for me, I'd be interested in hearing that, but you don't have to.
Yes, I would like to add something. I believe, and this is just coming from me, that a significant contributor to our graduation rates is the community in Freedom Academy. It's my belief that people can't only be driven, especially students, can't only be driven by their teachers. Although it is a very strong force, it is not enough in some cases. So I believe one reason why we, us three, emphasize so much on the service in the community is because I believe it's, as they say, it takes a village to raise a child. The support systems that both the school and the students give out to each other creates a network that has positive feedback.
That's very well stated. Thank you for sharing that. It's as I suspected. Thank you, Freedom Prep, for being here. We'd love to grab a picture with you. We have a, oh, sorry about that. Go ahead, Member Spike.
I just wanted to say thank you, and I hope that I hope that some of our politicians are listening to your voices at the moment, or just lots of our public. You don't have to answer this question, but this is, I'm just curious, where are you all going in the fall? What happens next? And no pressure if you do, I have a student graduating, I'm curious. And also so proud of all of you. So just in the, where, because I think this is important too for the school to, where are you going? What happens now?
Well, I suppose I'll start with me and then we'll go this direction. So for me, my postgraduate plans are mainly to serve a proselyting mission, ecclesiastical, and then after 2 years, I'm planning on going to the University of Utah, hopefully for a double major. I want to go into the medical field, so one in some sort of biomedical science, and then I'd also like to study theology.
In the fall, I'll be attending BYU and I'll be majoring in accounting.
And then I will take a little break, but in the fall, I will go to a technical school called MTech, and I will do cosmetology. After that, I would like to major in criminology or criminal justice. So.
Thank you. And all of those choices, right? All of those choices are powerful. And the education that you have received will provide you just incredible opportunity and access to this world. And I thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Vice Chair Bowles and then Member Phillips.
I won't say a lot, but I will tell you, I'm going to represent the faculty because you have administrators and students and counselors. But I'll tell you, a few times I've taught members of the faculty at Freedom Preparatory Academy when they're in our educational leadership program. And I will tell you, they are fiercely loyal to this school. And they so believe in it and are really committed. And I think that's true across the entire faculty. So just to represent the faculty's views as well, you'll find that this is a dedicated faculty who really believe in the mission of this school. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, as I've been thinking more about particularly the speeches from the students, we have so much factionalism in our society and tribalism, and to hear about the clubs and the groups that you, with whom you're affiliated, and how they collaborate and support each other's objectives was just very, very encouraging. It gives me all kinds of, I'm a teacher, so I have a lot of hope for the future. I'm optimistic, but it gives me even more hope for our future leaders. So thank you very much for sharing that. You
got a lot of plus ones to that comment, Member Phillips. Thank you for being here. We would like to get a picture with you, and we have a certificate for your school. We typically do the picture right back there, so if you'll just stand up, we'll join you. And thank you again for being here, Freedom Prep. Or to wit. I don't think I've ever heard that from a student in a charter meeting before. Okay. Well, that's going to sustain me for the next month and gives me hope for the future. I don't know about you guys, but that was fantastic. We'll move on now to our next agenda item, which is a review of our communications policy. And for those of you diehards listening online and here in the audience with us, you'll know that we have been reviewing our policies. We take one every couple of months or every month if we have time to do it. This time, I thought it would be a good idea to go over our communications policy. I have gotten a lot of questions from members of the press, from members of the public as to, why we direct everybody to Director Lambert. I'll get calls, I'm happy to listen, but then I direct them to talk with Jennifer for their specific concern. Everybody was aware of how things work and why we have this communications policy in place. So Director Lambert, you're listed, right? Never mind. So, does anybody have any thoughts or comments or changes or updates, we were trying to, it's up there on the screen so that you can see it. This policy was established, 5 years ago or so, because we didn't have a communications policy. And what would happen, and the problem we were trying to solve, is that members of the public would contact, or our schools would contact one charter board member, and they'd say one thing, but staff would say another thing, and then another charter board member would say something different. And so we put this communications policy into place so that we would have consistent messaging and consistent communication from our board and our staff, functioning as one state charter school board staff entity. So that was the purpose behind this, and we tried to cover official communications by state charter school board members, requests from the media, staff communications, and then personal communications. And I do know that anytime board members are speaking with anybody, I try to do this with fidelity myself, I make sure they understand that I'm not speaking for the board. Now, sometimes whomever you're speaking with will still take that as well, but board member so-and-so said, or Chair Tonks said, and so we still have to be careful within those conversations. And so this is an opportunity to use this policy as a reminder to ourselves, but also to be informative and educative to our schools and to the public as well. So are there any updates anybody wants to make to this? Is there anything missing? Anybody have questions? Member Phillips?
Thank you, Chair Tonks. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about it. I have maybe 2 comments and then a suggestion. And the first comment I have is that I think we as board members, ever since this policy has been instituted, have really been good about not speaking to the press. I'm not sure anyone on this board has ever spoken to the press on behalf of the board, and I think that's a really important reason to have this policy. The second thing that I don't think anyone will disagree with is perhaps the recommendation that we have some statement with underneath, well, actually could cover the whole policy, certainly personal communications, staff communications. And I don't think that this is necessarily something that hasn't been followed, but I think stating it would be a really important part of just saying what our expectations are, and that would be that any communication by board members, staff members, anyone representing the board, or any personal communication always be marked with by civility and professionalism. We kind of did that with our board culture document already, but I think something there would be important. And then just one other point, and then I'll listen to what people have to say about it. The one thing that I take issue with is the line essentially in the personal communications where it says, all inquiries, whether informational or seeking an official statement. Of course, I'm speaking of the informational part, not an official statement, because none of us give an official statement from the board. Only the board gives an official statement from the board. Should not be handled by any individual board members. Inquiries, et cetera, directed to staff, which most of the time we do. But, you know, we are not an elected board. We're an appointed board. And it's very difficult to be responsive, if you will, to your constituents, I'm putting that with air quotes, because we're not elected, without being able to take a phone call. And I don't think this happens frequently. I estimated that it probably happens to me about 3 times a year, because my number is published. You know, obviously most of ours are. And most of those cases are easily directed towards staff. They are. In some cases, a school just wants to vent a little bit, usually not against staff or the state charter school board, but just about an issue at their school or something that they rightly recognize that the board has identified and that they need to fix. And I think sometimes, I think one of the worst messages we could give to charter schools is that they can't reach out to a board member and vent, or can't say, I don't know what to do about this. I had someone call, in fact, in the last 6 weeks to say, I don't know what to do about this. And I said, well, you know what? You need to contact Marie Stephenson, because she does know what to do. And she'll probably advise you to do this, but talk with her. And I think that he did. And I think that something is already underway. So sometimes I think on the informational, we are sources of information. Many of us are experts in what we have done in the charter world. I'm looking at Member Smith, who has, I don't know how many boards of charters she's been on. She's got a really good sense of it. I think about all the gathered knowledge here. That doesn't mean we do the work, but for instance, I remember sitting down with individuals from a charter school that eventually, and this was, I want to state this, I'm not saying the name of this school, but I'm saying this was not AISU, but another school that voted to close with its own board. We did not close the school nor put it on probation per se, but they called me, and I made it very clear to my committee on the board and to leadership that I was going to take a conversation, because I was at the time helping another member of staff who's not here anymore write a school closure manual. And I was encouraged even to just sit down with them and just kind of calm their troubled hearts. I think that there are times when we, for instance, many of us, I'm looking around the room, we've given trainings in directors' meetings or in a special session sponsored by the State Charter School Board. Obviously, that is known. But if we're going to be placed in a position to provide information in one context, although we shouldn't go on and provide staff type of information, I don't think it's inappropriate for us at times to provide information or to just be a listening ear and to say, you know, you're in a tough spot, and of course we as a board want you to succeed. You know, that's just a stated directive from our board. I think we can say that. We want this problem to be resolved. It's very reassuring to be able to reach out to the people who ultimately vote, in some cases, whether your school is to close or what designation it might receive, or indirectly by the directives that we give, to just know that they're there. I mean, I'm not sure that anything I've ever said or done with a charter school has had much effect beyond their notice that as an individual I care and that I hope for the best for them. And I don't think that's inappropriate. I guess that's what I should say. So my recommendation would be all inquiries seeking an official statement should not be handled by individual board members. But I do think that there should be room for us to be responsive as humans to somebody who takes the trouble to find our number and call us up and just say, you know, we're struggling at our school, or we may close, and usually, again, almost invariably, anything we say is followed by, and please contact so-and-so because they are the expert here and can really be supportive and helpful. But even to have a name for some charter schools don't even know who to contact in staff. I mean, I know it's public, but that's also even helpful. So that would be the only thing. I think if we're completely closed off from being approached by people that we authorize or that are working under schools that our board has authorized, I think that might not be the message that we're trying to give. And particularly when in other contexts we are providing information and help and support and training even.
Okay, thank you. Any thoughts on that?
A little bit.
Go ahead.
And I think what Member Phillips just said is really represented in the policy, really, that it doesn't preclude any of us from listening carefully. And to be less frustrating to those schools, I think it's frustrating if we say, oh, okay, and we know we can't individually solve the issue for that. That becomes, it increases their concern. But if we can say, this is the individual, just as Member Phillips said, this is the individual with whom you should speak. And that gives them an avenue for correcting the concern or for getting help or aid that they need. Then we've helped to build a bridge for them, which is what I think we want to do. We've built a bridge as opposed to, you know, it just increasing concern. The other thing, may I comment on one other thing? And Chair Tonks was also right when she spoke about that when folks call, sometimes the messages from different ones of us can be different. And that's not because someone's only telling part of the story and someone else is telling part of the story. It's often because we don't know the newest part of the story. And so for it to come back to Director Lambert, she will know what action has just taken place or the newest information most often, more than maybe any of us individually. And to have that single voice helps us to have the newest, latest information and and it's not that we're just giving part of the story with each of us individually. It's because we have a single voice who's most up to date, who can help in that direction. So I just wanted to clarify that that's why sometimes we tell the truth that we know, but our truth may be a week old. And so it's good to have the most up to date truth in that help. And so that's most helpful. So I just wanted to clarify those two things.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I hear what you're saying on this, but I think that, I think we all get contacted by people, and I don't think anything in here precludes us from being able to listen to somebody. And where I have found myself, and I'll just share an example for myself, when somebody calls me and they say, well, I don't know what to do about whatever the problem is. Well, I'm a director and I know how to fix that. I do have the expertise, like you're saying. And I have to check myself and say, just because I can doesn't mean I should, because this is not my job. If they were calling me, if it was one of my staff members calling me or somebody calling about my school, that's my job to respond. And so I have to check myself just because I know that I have the expertise to be able to handle it. I think we're in a similar position as former directors, educators, even if we know the answer, because it comes through the filter and it provides inconsistent messaging, and I just don't think that that is fair to our schools. So I think we're saying the same thing, that we are fine to listen. When we step into the role of starting to advise, which, dang it, is really hard not to do because we know the answers, that's where I would say this policy helps us. It helps our schools, because then they're going to get consistent messaging from our staff. They have the information for all the schools. When we talk to one school or one individual, we might have information for them, but we don't see how they fit into the larger context of how every school is being worked with their portfolio managers, who they should all have contact information for. And I just took a look. Our phone numbers are not published. Did they used to be?
Up until about.
Okay, maybe Director Lambert can speak to that.
So I think it's been longer than just a few months, but in case anyone's worried that we don't publish your phone number, now, we can change that. If you want us to publish your phone numbers, we can do that, but right now, it isn't.
Yes.
And what is published is your schools.utah.gov emails. So again, if you want us to change that, let us know, but that's right now what we publish.
Okay, thank you for speaking to that. I guess the issue here is whether anything needs to change or whether what is in here covers the way that we communicate as board members. Oh, go ahead, Board Member Hymas, and then we'll come back to you, Member Phillips.
I can just add some thought here. I agree with what's being said, and I see both predicaments here. And many times I believe we get emails that seek opinion, right, that are asking things. So I wonder if it would be worth just adding in there, second, where it says inquiries, including the second inquiries. If we said something along the lines of inquiries about official board business, including requests for information, should be directed to executive director. of the State Charter School Board. And I think what that does is it allows you to say, yes, if it is about official school business, absolutely, we can go through that avenue. But if somebody's has a question about your thoughts or your experiences, that maybe you could take that on without pushing that through. So just some thought.
Thank you for that. I think that is helpful. Go ahead.
I guess my recommendation, I would still support with the word informational, because even in those instances, the most recent one, contacted by a school, I was able to say to this individual in a very short conversation, from what you said, it sounds to me as though you might be seeking a change to your Exhibit A. Therefore, you should consider contacting Marie Stephenson, who can guide you along that process, and to any of her staff who work with her who might also be able to be helpful. Now, it may be that he may not be seeking that. It may be that in a deeper conversation with a staff member, he will find out what he should do. But I don't want to ever have my hands tied so much that I can't say something like that, which I think is informational. And so by this policy, if it's strictly read, a board member can't really say anything. They can't give an opinion. They can't give even helpful information. So I do worry about the word informational. I think that sometimes these inquiries go to some of our associations and people think it's a board member responding. That's happened, I know, recently even. I think other times there's confusion by some schools who's on the board and who is staff. That also happens. So I don't think that it is entirely inappropriate for us to offer some information. Should it be deep? No. Unless maybe instructed by leadership, as I was with the closure stuff, that's different. Or when we're specifically giving trainings, that's a lot of information too. But if we were to strictly read this policy, board members could never say anything when they were contacted at all. And I'm just not sure that that's really what we want. Except for, please go ask staff this question, and not even give perhaps even the right staff member based on what we've heard in the venting or in the worry or in the description.
I understand that concern completely. I think that, at least for me, I stay in process rather than advising or opinion, that this is the process that you would go through and the best person to help you with that. And I always direct them to Director Lambert. And I think this is a good example, because you know that Marie is in charge of the Amendment A, but maybe there's other information that Director Lambert would have had, and I don't know the situation at all, but it might have been helpful for the school to go to her first, and she could have helped them, and maybe Marie would have sent them back to Jennifer, but that helps maintain consistency. So I am equally concerned about not having that in there, because I do think it guides us and it helps us maintain our communications with fidelity to process. Like, here's what the process looks like, rather than I'm going to advise you to do X, Y, or Z. And I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying that I find myself in that situation, and it's really easy to say, oh, well, I've done this. All you need to do is da-da-da-da-da. But sticking with processes, and I think it protects us as staff members, and I think it's more fair to our schools that they know that they can't call an individual board member and get, one advisement or opinion, and then if they do come to staff or they go to a different board member, something different's going to happen. So I like your addition, Board Member Hymas. Does that provide you with enough comfortability, I guess, to be able to move forward with it?
I still think that even directing people to staff is informational, and so I do kind of worry that anything that a board member says in a conversation now is outside of policy if informational is in there. On the other hand, what I heard Board Member Hymas saying is that actually board members would be allowed by that recommendation and that language to give an opinion. Maybe I misunderstood what your recommendation was.
So if I have your recommendation accurate, on the 5th sentence, it would be inquiries about official board business, including requests for information, should be directed to the executive director of the State Charter School Board, who will respond consistent with usual staff communications procedures. Did I quote you accurately?
You did, thank you. And I get that I'm not going to vote on this, but what if, would it help as well to strike including requests for information? So it read inquiries about official board business should be directed to executive staff, or is that redundant with the sentence before by removing that?
Yes,
Member Smith?
I think that would be helpful, and I also think I really like the idea of including, the official language, right? Official board business, because I think it's important that we be able to give our personal opinions on subjects, always. Other board members are free to do that. You can say, I don't like that the board has done this, right? I personally disagree with that action, but, this is a thing, right? So I think we should not bind ourselves from expressing our opinions as long as we are clear that this is an opinion and not an official board policy or statement or action or whatever, right? I am not representing the board. I'm representing myself when I say I don't like the way the board voted on a particular piece of legislation, right? And we should be able to say that.
Vice Chair Bowles?
I'm gonna disagree with Member Smith for just a minute, because if a board has taken a position, even if I disagree with it, and I will state that in the meeting, and I should, and they can listen to the minutes of that meeting and listen to my opinion, but once the board has voted, my opinion is the opinion of the board. We're a body politic, and once that opinion has been voted on, my opinion is now the opinion of the board. And if I want to change that, I should bring that back again to the board to reconsider and talk about it. But when anybody asks, I should say, the position of the board is this, and not, the board voted to do that, but I disagree. I think that always puts us in a difficult position. When we're part of a body politic, we don't have an individual. We can't individually take action. We only take the action as a unified body through vote. And once we've voted that, then we should say, this is how the board voted on that issue. And we don't say, but I think it really is stupid. It only undermines the rest of the board. So it really is important that we are consistent in that. We represent the position of the board as a whole, if we've taken a position, and refer individuals back to the executive director. We just saw an example of, we said our numbers are published, and Jennifer said, no, they're not. She had the latest truth. It was just an example of what I'm talking about. So if it comes back to one consistent voice, it's less frustrating for individuals. And when we're a part of this body politic, we really are representing the will of the whole board. And prior to that, in these meetings, we need to have strongly our own individual opinions and take positions and vote how we would like to. But once the board has decided, we need to, that's the opinion of the board, and I represent the opinion.
Will you use your, Member Smith, will you please use your microphone?
I would just, it's a little bit confusing to say, and I see the logic in what you're saying, and I agree it's probably good, right? But it is confusing to say, I must always represent the opinion of the board when this very policy says that we will never represent, that we are representing the opinion of the board.
But a vote is the public way that a board communicates, and I think, I'm not trying to speak for you, but that's what I think he was saying, was that when we take a vote, that is our public way of communicating as an entire board. Go ahead, Member Phillips.
Oddly enough, and I think that this is amusing enough, I'm going to actually say it, and it's probably because I'm vocal in board meetings, and so people already know my opinion, but I can't ever remember someone calling me to ask my opinion in my entire history of service on this board. More often than not, there are calls to just vent some frustration, and again, not necessarily with our staff or board, and often to to ask for what happened or what our board's position is, which is very easy to state because it's in a public meeting, and referring them to the meeting that I recall that it was decided in. So once again, I just come back to the fact that if somebody is willing to call within the parameters that we've discussed, I think here, I don't think that it's inappropriate to give certain information. Should we go on and on? No, typically not, unless maybe we've been asked to do that. Or there's a particular context from leadership that's we're asked to do that in, like, for instance, if we're on the legislative committee and we're doing something, there are actual roles we play where we give an enormous amount of information, right? But that's my one problem is that word, because I think information can be very neutral, and it typically is not an opinion. It's actually directing them to stuff we've decided or staff members, and now maybe it should be Jennifer exclusively, because I haven't done that in the past. I've at times directed them to specific staff members. So that's a good corrective, and I think it's a good thing to direct them. Most of the time, I have directed them to Jennifer, but Director Lambert, but not always. But you can't almost open your mouth without giving information, and so I worry about that one word in there, because it almost as though I have to become a robot on the phone, and that is just not responsive as a human being. It's almost rude. And so I know I'm not going to be able to do that entirely. And so that's why I'm sort of bristling at that word, because almost invariably you give, even if it's very, very neutral and rather banal, and you think someone might have even been able to find it on their own, it still is information. And I'm still giving it. And I can almost not be a human being and not do that when I get a phone call. So that's my one problem.
No, and I totally hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree that when people contact us, we don't want to be like, talk to the hand, go to Jennifer, right? And I don't think any of us does act that way. I think that we are happy to listen. We're content to take in information and then direct them to the appropriate source. So I'm looking at here at synonyms for information, and I'm going to read the list. Material, knowledge, intelligence, instruction, info, data, clue, and advice. Yes.
So I guess I think it's actually turning on something else. All inquiries, whether informational or seeking an official statement, should not be handled by any individual board member. It's actually not the information, it's what we should be handling. And in fact, we do handle if we get a phone call, we do handle the initial informational request. And so maybe it's the verb rather than the noun that should be changed, and that would allow us to direct to staff, because that is a handling. In other words, when I get a request like the one I recently got, because that's the one that's on my mind, I handle it. I do handle it. It's an informational request. I do handle it. I think I handle it in the way that this policy would actually want me to most of the time. I'm sure I've crossed a line here and there, and however many years I've been on the board, close to 6 maybe, but not often and not far. And so the real question would be what the definition of handling is. Maybe instead of using a negative there, should be directed, rather than should not be handled by an individual board member, should be directed by individual board members to the executive director, so that we can handle it, but handle it in a way consistent with the policy. I think that would soothe my heart, and would still allow me to be responsive to our charter schools, and to have a caring heart and an ear, and be able to do.
And I don't think nobody is saying that you can't do that. I want to be very clear about that. We all do that when people contact us. I wordsmithed. Let me read this. Tell me what you think. All inquiries seeking an official statement should be directed to the executive director. Wait, no. Should be direct. Yeah, all inquiries That
think
whole
we're
sentence
okay
can stay the
because-
same, should be
I think we're okay
directed.
here, Cindy, because of the prefix where it says seeking an official opinion or an official statement, right?
Yeah.
So it leaves you free to comment on things that are not seeking an official statement. Also, I just wanted to mention that I had someone literally yesterday contact me seeking an opinion on something. And it was an item that was going to be in our committee meeting this morning. And this person asked me, this is what I have submitted. Is this going to be okay? And I said, well, I can't say that. I'm not on the committee. And her next question is to me, well, what do you think? Right? There she's asking for my opinion. And I said, in my opinion, this is, I like this and I don't like that. Right? But again, I don't speak for the whole board. So I think, I want to continue to be okay to do that because I think that is okay.
Okay, so if we just change the second sentence, go ahead, Member Spike.
And I apologize for interrupting your wordsmithing moment there.
It
I
wasn't going well.
Okay. I appreciate the conversation, and for folks listening, I know this might seem a little nuanced, or it is really important because just based on what Member Smith was saying, and I was talking about this morning, this exact situation to happen to me a couple years ago as a new board member, where I was approached to speak into the media about a topic that we are engaged in, and this policy helped me after talking to Chair Tonks about just my role and our one voice as a board. That I know we're talking about, what I feel is we're really talking about the true intent and people wanting our help and our advice and our guidance because of the role that we're in. Unfortunately, there are people that do reach out to us to divide us, to portray us as not having the ability to work together, to move forward. So I appreciate the conversation and the time that we're taking to really think about this, because as a new board member and someone new to the political processes, this is important because can be used as a way to not for the betterment of our work.
That was well stated. Thank you, Member Spiker. Director Lambert?
I just wanted to bounce off of this, and Member Phillips already kind of alluded to this, but this is something that happened recently where it was stated in a school's governing board representing that our board member told them something that just wasn't true. It kind of like represented that we maybe were not supportive of that school when in fact we're very supportive of this school, and they had misspoken that it really was someone else, but they had conflated that individual was on the board. And so I think that that's kind of a concern, that it may not even be intentional that people are trying to maybe divide the board. It could be even unintentional, but that does happen.
Yeah, go ahead.
What if we said, and I think this almost goes back to what Board Member Hymas said, where we just say, we conflate those two statements, starting with all and the other, and we simply say, all inquiries, whether informational or seeking an official statement, should be directed to the executive director of the State Charter School Board, because that gives us an action. Instead of a do not handle with, like you suggested, Chair Tonks, speak to the hand, right? Now we can direct. Even politely as to why we're directing, we can make some statements, but it's not something that we are handling in a deep dive or in any sort of an official statement sort of a way, but so that we make it a positive instead of a negative. It should be directed rather than not handled, because even in directing, we are handling.
Yeah.
So I like that. I could feel comfortable with that. I could still be polite and courteous. I could give information relative to directing back to Director Lambert, and I could still be, responsive in that regard. And I don't think it would be inappropriate either to continue to let the occasional school to vent a little bit, because people like to be heard. People like to feel like,
Yeah, there's no
You know,
argument
yeah.
with that at all. So I think we are all on the same page. I was trying to do exactly what you said. What if it reads, fourth sentence down, all inquiries, whether informational or seeking an official statement, should be directed to the executive director of the state charter school board, who will respond consistent with usual staff communications procedures. Just smash those together, get rid of the negative handling piece, and how do we feel about that?
I like that. Less is more.
I did the Twitter version of that instead of the blog version.
just
Yes.
one quick follow-up. I still think it would be, and again, this isn't my response to any, I've never heard that, that our board members have been unprofessional in their communication with schools. I've never heard that. Maybe they have been in the history of the board, but I haven't heard that about our board members as the board is constituted. But I still think it would be, as we're thinking of these policies as policies that will be useful long beyond our board tenure, I think putting in something still about civility and professionalism that mimics the language that is in our culture document, our board culture document, would be just a nice connection.
I think if it lives in the culture document, that applies to all communications that we have. And I'm not sure that that's necessary, but I am open to. Yeah, do we need, we're doing a motion on this? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So may I make a motion to this was Chair Tonk's recommendation. All inquiries, whether information or seeking an official statement, remains. Everything from should not be handled by individual board member inquiries, including a request for information, we strike. Therefore, the sentence goes, seeking an official statement should be directed to the executive director. Those words between, my motion is to strike those words.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I would second that motion.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Bowles, second by Member Phillips. Any further discussion to the motion? Member Spiker.
I would just wanted to echo and say I agree about the culture document overriding the way that we interact and do business. Also, Member Phillips, thank you for the reminder. I think that it is well noted, especially in the current context of the way we see many adults handling business and politics in our nation, it is a wonderful reminder for us on the way that we want to engage and be a model in having difficult conversations.
And I will echo that. Thank you for bringing that up, and I think we are all on the same page and in agreement about that. Okay, any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
It's like the charter school guy.
Member Olson, Member Spiker just referred to you as the charter school god.
Sorry, I hope my voice wasn't too loud. Just wanted to make sure my voice was heard.
We're just glad you're with us today.
Every now and then, I'm just there to sneak up on people, so I appreciate being involved.
As long as you're catching people doing good, then I don't think anybody will have a problem with it. And I would just like to thank all of our board members. I love that on our board, we can wrestle with these decisions. And I agree with what Member Spiker said. This may seem very nuanced and possibly ridiculous to people who are listening to us, but it's important. You can hear how much Member Phillips cares about our schools. You can hear how much she wants to make sure that that line of communication is not cut off. We all agree with that. And we also have a duty to make sure that it's consistent and that we are working within the boundaries that our board has decided is appropriate as a body politic. And I'm going to use the phrase that Vice Chair Bowles used there as well. And I just appreciate that we can have these conversations. And so thank you, each one of you, for your contributions to this. It's always interesting when when our executive committee meets and we try and determine how much time is going to be needed for each agenda item. Well, I'm a very bad guesser. We'll just leave it at that. But I would not trade the communication and the comments and the comfort levels with which we can support our policies after we've wrestled with difficult things. So thank you for all of that. At this point, we will move to a review of our board goals and possible action. I'm going to provide a little context before Director Lambert takes over. We have been talking about these board goals for some time. We were directed as the executive committee, which is Vice Chair Bowles, myself, and Director Lambert, to take these and come up with something that better represents who we are as a board and what we want our staff to be using their time doing. As we all know, anytime we direct staff to do one thing, there is a finite amount of time to be spent on each one of the things that they are directed to do, and including their jobs, right? This is their profession. And so we have to very carefully weigh their time and whether or not what we're asking them to do is a higher priority or a lower priority than all of the other things that they have on their plate. So we had a wrestly decision and discussion about what we wanted these goals to look like, and now Jennifer will share the results of that wrestly discussion.
So I actually am going to have staff do that, but before Marie starts, Chair Tonks teed it up quite perfectly, because not only are we presenting what came out of the executive committee, and then Marie Stephenson actually put into words for us. She helped wordsmith this, but as Stuart Akobia and also Smriti Dakal started working on one of our other goals about the policy review, we came up with a challenge that in terms of, is this really what you want us to spend our time on? And so that really, for the second question, is coming from staff. We asked the chair to also include this with the discussion, because the policy review and us being able to complete that goal will take significant time of staff and also likely schools. And so we have three things that we brainstormed. There may be other options, but really the heart of it is, if this is super important to you and you want us to spend the time on, we will. But we do want you to know that that's what it is. And so if this is just something that you thought, oh, it would be nice, then you may want to think about different options. But I will turn it first over to Ms. Stephenson, and then I will turn it over to Mr. Akobia to present each individually.
Thank you, Director Lambert, and good morning, board members. I'm going to be talking about a possibility of combining the innovations and support goal. And one of the reasons that we, as staff, brainstormed on this was that with our innovations goal, we have been doing a deep dive on the authorizing committee and looking at innovative practices and what is happening in our current portfolio. And really what we're coming up often is that, we want to support the schools we have. We still want to encourage, innovative applications, but not quite sure how to further direct our applicant groups that are coming through. We do have some ideas there, but perhaps that's better as a conversation than an actual goal that we're working towards. We also found that with our support goal, a lot of it was out of our control. We can offer support, we can provide trainings, we can email and really make ourselves known. However, it is up to our schools to engage in those things. And so as we were talking about that and trying to get at the heart of what will help to improve the schools in our portfolio, what can really help with support, and how can it be more facing towards things that we have control over, we would like to present this as a possibility. So the goal would be, as it is on the board, by June 30th, so about a year from now, within that year, we will have launched a micro-credentialing and badging system. And and provide access to all of our charter school governing board members that are within our school's portfolio. And at that launch, we would have at least 10 badges or micro-credentials that would exist. And within the year, since its launch, so by that June 30th of 2024, that we would have 20 additional badges developed. Some of the strengths that we noted was that whether they participate or not, we can still continue to invite, but we control being able to get them made, as well as building that system. And we thought that this could help us really provide additional support, help our schools with innovations, and help them to continue to improve their practices and get better and better each day. So.
That was very well said. Thank you so much. And thank you for your good work on this. All of our staff, you do amazing work. And I like that you shifted this to something that you actually have control over. And that makes a lot of sense. Go ahead. Oh, Member Spiker, go ahead.
I was just commenting that I am really excited for the badging piece of that. I think that that is something that folks will find that they want to participate in. It's something that is part of the language of skill acquisition right now. And I mean, I know, I just got a couple Adobe badges last week and I was like, whoa, right on, I'm going to add these to my, LinkedIn and things. I think, and it's a great way for us to easily track and for the board to hold each other accountable too. So.
I completely agree with that, and you're right. It is the language of education, and to me, it's we're practicing what we preach, right? If we're like, our innovations goal is for other people to do all these things, okay, well, no, we're gonna do an innovative thing, and you can participate in it. It's demonstrated competency, right? So, Member Phillips. Oh, Member Bassett, go ahead. This is right up her alley with innovation.
So I do have enthusiastic support for this goal, in particular that micro-credential space. It's something that I've been heavily involved with professionally. I have a few very simple recommendations. So I serve on the USB Micro-Credential Advisory Council. And as part of that council, we have talked extensively about the semantics here. And I recommend just micro-credential. And we eliminate that word badging. Badging serves as this parenthetical addition, but our conversation on that committee has been call it a micro-credential and then teach people what that means instead of including that subtitle. So that's one thing. And then I am curious, I don't know, I know we're just developing it as a goal, but I would like to hear some of the possibilities or what you envision as those early priority micro-credentials. And I would just I'm all in on this work, but those are my initial thoughts.
That is great. You're exactly right, because the badge is just the visual representation of the competency that the micro-credential provides. So that is excellent feedback. And I will ask Jennifer to talk about the priorities. And then we'll go to you, Member
So
Phillips.
I'm sure Ms. Stephenson, because this will be one of her tasks to actually get it going. And she's already been looking into it. We've already been in contact with a company that can help us with it to get that system actually going. I do want to note this came out of the Innovations Committee that hasn't been meeting or, kind of petered out, but this is where we came to. As we were talking about it, I mean, we can come up with our own innovations, and I know all of you, in fact, Member Spiker and I were just talking this morning about some, possible innovations, but then we're stuck with what we can come up with. And instead of enabling others so that they can come up with, they have the capacity to be able to come up and implement their own innovations. And that way we truly are getting more innovation instead of the things that we can come up with. And so I think what we would be focusing on is capacity. So like finances, governance, working with administration, those kinds of things. That's what we kind of came up with, is that it is the capacity and it's those technical skills, because no one takes a class on how to be a good governing board member, right? And it's not necessarily a skill set that our governing board members are coming with. And so just helping these individuals that have a lot of passion, and that's one thing that I personally have found since my time being here, is when I first came on, there was a lot of focus that we need board members with these certain credentials. And we have some board members that have some really impressive credentials, but they may not be as passionate about the school. And so if we can take people who are super passionate about a school and help them get those credentials and those skill sets, I think we would have some really strong boards.
Okay. We need, I think, oh, sorry, Member Phillips.
Thank you so much. I'll be brief. I know we're a little behind. The one of the things I would say, and I love this idea, so thank you so much. My idea goes along, I think, with Director Lambert's about building capacity. I'm wondering if to really push innovation, besides making sure that you've got functioning institutions and governance and finances and so on, is that some of these micro-credentials could not be specifically could not specifically target innovation itself. That is to say, for instance, maybe one about the nature of disruption, both positive and negative and unintended consequences, as well as how to initiate as well as absorb that within your school so that you can innovate. That's scary for a lot of people in education, which is a very controlled system in the public system. But I think there would be some specific micro-credentials that could actually support governing boards and administrators and even staff members relative to implementing and even identifying innovations that would work with their school. So that was just one recommendation, but so that we're even taking the idea of building capacity toward innovation, sort of that next step. But then I'm wondering as well, in terms of our goals, if as a board, maybe part of our strategic planning in next month couldn't be to determine a list of types of innovative schools that we would love to see applied for, and as a board that we support a list, that to encourage people, not that it means that somebody who applies with that idea isn't automatically authorized, but the kinds of things that we might be looking for, kind of broad categories, not specifics per se, but broad categories of where we would like to expand our portfolio in terms of innovation.
I love that idea, and I'm wondering, as Director Lambert was talking, we had the best innovation committee. We got busy with other things and ended up in positions where there just has not been time. That would be a topic I would absolutely love to see tackled in an innovation committee, maybe Director Lambert.
Actually, the authorizing committee is ahead of you. So the authorizing committee has been tackling this and discussing it, but as I'm sure they can share, it sounds a lot easier and better than it is necessary in practice. We've been struggling with it because, again, what you come up with is then it's just the ideas that we can come up with. And then it seems to be somewhat limiting. And so we have, and in fact, Marie she's drafted something up with the things that have come out of that committee with some ideas that they've come up with. And, on the one hand, I think it would be great to publicize, hey, this would be awesome. But like Member Spiker was just sharing with me this morning, something that wasn't even on that list. And so we've got to be able to walk that fine line of being able to really seek out innovation, but also allow people the flexibility to come up with ideas we cannot come up with.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with you that we certainly don't want to be limited by being just inside the box and in an echo chamber. However, in this case, we have a portfolio. It's ours. I mean, we own it in a sense as the authorizer. And I do think that in this instance, we can look at it and say, what are we missing that might be found in other states or that might be, yeah. So what I'm saying is, though, from a sort of philosophical standpoint, not just practical, I think the State Charter School Board does have a vested interest in increasing the innovation and just breadth of its portfolio. And therefore, I don't think it's the same as sort of stifling innovation to suggest, here's our portfolio and we've got some missing pieces. Therefore, we would really encourage innovation in these areas from our schools. That doesn't mean that other people can't bring different ideas, but I think we have not only sort of a right, but an obligation to sort of identify where we have deficits and to try to seek a broader portfolio.
And I don't think anybody disagrees with that. And it sounds like the authorizing committee is doing that. And I'm going to add to that, it also doesn't preclude existing schools from looking at that innovation and implementing innovation in some of our existing schools. How many times do we get new schools who have these great programs that would look fantastic in an existing infrastructure, but they don't have the infrastructure pieces themselves? Like, there are lots of possibilities, and you can tell I get really excited about talking about innovation because I don't want to stop. However, let's bring this back to our innovations and support goal, unless there are any other comments. I appreciate the discussion, and we can move forward with this. I'll be looking for a vote or a motion.
I'd be happy to make that motion. I'll be happy to make a motion that we accept the innovation support goal that we see displayed with the changes of the word, in each case, badging or badges being replaced with micro-credentialing or micro-credentials, whatever the appropriate term would be in each of those cases. And that's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Bowles. We have a second by Member Smith. Any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
I'm going to rule that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. At this point, okay, at this point, we'll move to our next agenda. Oh, there's still more goal stuff. I apologize. Yes, keep going, Director Lambert.
Hello, everyone. Stuart Ocovia, the Financial Compliance Manager for the State Charter School Board. So today we're here to get some direction on the board's goal, and I'm just going to go ahead and read the goal just to give you some background. And the goal states that by the end of 2023, all charter LEAs authorized by the SESB will have all required policies publicly available. So the challenge of that is how to actually accomplish that. And what we run into is ends up being a very significant resource from our time to actually go through each school's policies and to see which policy applies to which board rule and back and forth. And the real challenge also is the fact that some policies are only conditionally required. So if a school does a certain thing, then a policy is required. If they don't, then they don't have to have a policy for that. So in those situations, there's no way for staff to know if a school is doing such a thing. So a lot of times, what we found is we're making a lot of judgment calls, and a lot of these policies are legal languages, and so it's really taken a lot of time for us to go through the policy and try to match them to the 45 required policies. So what we've come up here with is 3 possible solutions going forward so that we can still accomplish our goal. The first option here is to review each LEA's policies, which is basically what I've stated, to ensure that they have all the policies, take the time, whatever it takes. But what we've noticed, it takes about almost 10 hours to review each LEA's policies. And the ones we reviewed were actually some really, really good LEAs that had policies that were very well laid out, outlined very well, grouped, and it takes us a lot of time to match that to the required policy rule. So the next option here is we came up with maybe we can send each LEA a document like an Excel file where they can go in and copy the link of each policy document in the Excel file. With this option here, this will also require LEAs to take a significant amount of time from, on their part to actually do this. So that is kind of the challenge on that one. The last option is we can continue to provide the required list of policies, provide trainings, sample policies, and then we can ask LEAs to provide us with the written assurance that they have all the required policies. It will still require the LEA to do some work, but in this case, they're the one providing the written assurance, and we're the one providing the training and any support and anything that we can do on our end. But like Director Lambert was saying, we just want to know how the board feels and which direction you want to go and to accomplish this goal. And we'll be happy to take, whatever direction you'd like.
Thank you for that, Mr. Akobia. Board members, what do you think? Member Phillips?
I like option 3 because I think that the other two are on a cost-benefit analysis, not worth the effort for what you're receiving, especially when we are already, it's inefficient because it duplicates efforts. You're already doing, as a staff, at our direction, as a board, deep dives into schools where you are looking at their policies on those every 5-year comprehensive reviews. And so, if there are troubles, they will come up regularly, and we can help schools resolve those. So I'm comfortable with that. But the one thing I would say,
If I can, actually, right now in our comprehensive reviews, we're not doing that deep dive on the policy. So I do want to make sure that you're aware of that. We could start adding it, but you're going to run into some of the similar problems that really what the key was, because when Mr. Akobia first brought this to me, I was like, well, why is it taking this long? I don't get it. And he actually started walking me through it. And really where the key is that we don't know always when they have to have a policy. And sometimes you have to read through the policies to find it. And so we would run into that same problem with the comp reviews, but we could add this to the comp reviews if that's what the board wants.
I may, Chair. So, no, just to continue then, it may not be then a redundancy in effort, but I still think the cost-benefit analysis is definitely on the side of option number 3. But I'm wondering, because one of the things that LEAs, that our charter LEAs do, that all LEAs in Utah do for the State Board of Education, is provide links to essential policies in assurances. Is there, I wonder if there's any way we can have access to that information, because if we have access to that information, a review, so the only thing I might add then to number 3 is a review of those assurances to see if there are deficits. There are policy pages in those assurances that could be reviewed, and if a school does not have a link, that's a sign that maybe a notice of concern or some other kind of an informal notice could be given to the school. And to Mr. Akobia's point, I mean, one of the other things that you didn't even bring up that makes this kind of a review almost impossible, and we didn't really think about it as we put out this goal and voted on it. I don't think the details and the unintended consequences here is that many required policies are included in other policies because they naturally group together. An example would be an emergency safety intervention is likely to be in a discipline policy, and so not a standalone, or in some other policy related to even the provision of services, of special education services, for instance. And so to actually discern where the required language is in any given policy is not in any way obvious by looking at a list of policies necessarily for any given LEA. So my recommendation would be number 3, but also with the idea that for us to maybe have access and review on a yearly basis to see any egregious deficits, some of these assurances that the state already collects. No extra work for our own people at that point as well.
And I think that already, okay, that sounds good. I support number 3. It also makes the responsibility live in the right places.
Right.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Bowles.
I was just going to say the notion of the assurance says that the individual LEA assures that that has been done, and they take the responsibility for doing that. Every year, LEAs receive, as Member Phillips said, a list of assurances. some, and those are signed every year. Some of them are in compliance, some not. Like in the law, it says every school should have a sign that says, "In God We Trust," in it, and I'm not sure that really happens in every school, but the individual LEAs assure that that's done. And so our monitoring is just the assurance that they have done that. So I also agree the third option is the best.
Okay, at this point, I think if there's no more discussion, we can look for, yeah, go ahead, Director Lambert.
So maybe what I would suggest as a potential for a motion is that you ask staff to consider the third option and wordsmith or reword the goal and bring it to you on consent in your next meeting, if that's the direction you want to go.
Okay, looking for a motion. Go ahead, Member Phillips.
I'd like to move that the board direct staff through this motion to wordsmith option number 3 and bring it back to us on a consent agenda for May's meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Member Phillips, second by Member Bassett, whose fingers were quicker than Member Spiker's. Any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we're going to rule that that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to our last agenda item before lunch. Vanguard Academy, Mr. Okobe has been asked to provide us with an update on the school's warning status, and we'll turn the time over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So here I'm going to provide an update on Vanguard's warning status since our last board meeting. In this update, I'll be talking about mainly 3 things, which are the non-compliance of their charter agreement, the communication we've had since our last meeting, and although not part of the warning status, but a complaint that's come in since then. So Vanguard's charter agreement states that they're to have 7 board members, but as was mentioned at our last board meeting, Vanguard updated their bylaws to increase the number of board members to 9. As was stated, this violates their charter agreement, and as of today, they have not communicated with us about updating their charter agreement. So as of right now, Vanguard is not in compliance with their charter. On the second point, there hasn't really been that much communication between us and the school. They did reach out to us once via email to get next steps, and on March 17th, our executive director, Jennifer Lambert, gave them clear guidance on what they need to do to resolve the warning status. The email stated that, quote, if Vanguard Academy chooses to address the 2 remaining warning terms by adding board members, Vanguard Academy will still at a minimum need to, 1, ensure the number of board members matches what is approved in the charter agreement, either by bringing the bylaws into compliance with the charter agreement or by successfully amending the charter agreement. 2, ensure and prove that the new members are not conflicted. And 3, ensure that when conflicted board members must recuse themselves, there remain sufficient non-conflicted members to maintain a quorum. It further states that Vanguard Academy may also choose to address the warning terms another way. Regardless how Vanguard Academy chooses to address the 2 remaining warning terms, again, it is up to Vanguard Academy to demonstrate and prove that these deficiencies have been resolved, unquote. As per the meeting minutes from the school's February 24th meeting, we can see that 2 board members were added, and the names were Christian Sandoval and Daniel Jessup. But from reviewing the school's website, it appears that just 1 member was added. So right now their website shows 8 board members. In addition, Vanguard has since replaced their director, effective immediately. According to their February 28 meeting minutes, they selected a Chris Reynolds to be the new director. On their minutes, it states that, quote, He has an engineering license. We like his accounting knowledge and skills. He has really good computer skills. He is a musician. He has experience working with public relations. He wouldn't have the perceived conflict, and we like the experience he will bring in the STEAM field, unquote. Now I'm going to move on to our third point, and this is based on a complaint that came to us. And from the complaint, we found out that the school had a board meeting that was not properly noticed. Normally, a notice for a meeting provides the location of the meeting and the agenda of what is to be discussed. According to the minutes that is on their website, we noticed that the meeting was held at a location other than the school, and it appears that a vote was taken in closed session. We're not really sure. And to add to the complainant requested audio recordings, which were not provided. So there's no way to really know if the vote was done in an open or closed meeting. Vanguard did state that this was an emergency meeting where the 24-hour notice rule may not apply. However, the school needs to make effort to make sure that it's noticed as required by law. And as of today, we don't see any type of, there's no notice on the public notice website to show that this meeting was held. In addition, all votes need to be done in the open portion of the meeting, and without the audio recordings, we're not able to determine that. The statutes does state that audio recordings must be made available to the public. And that is all the update I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Akobia, for sharing that report and update on Vanguard Academy. Are there any board member comments? This was really just a report from staff to give us an update of where things are heading and how Vanguard is moving through their checklist for the warning status. So we appreciate that. Seeing no further comments, it will now be time to break for lunch. We'll reconvene at 1:15 for our next agenda item. Thank you. Okay, welcome back from our lunch break. We will get started with the afternoon portion of our State Charter School Board meeting. And Mike?
Make a comment and maybe possibly a motion.
Yes,
Is
go
that all
ahead.
right? And it's from an item that's been agended, which is our report on Vanguard Academy, which I really appreciated from Mr. Akobia and others and some discussion. As you know, and I think board members know, but just for the public's sake, I'm a member of the board's oversight committee. We have an authorizing and amending, we have legislative committees and some other committees, innovations and so on. And I'm concerned that because I would very much like to see Vanguard Academy succeed. They have an excellent education that they're bringing to an underserved population. And one of the things that's been very difficult for them to do, and I assume there might be some systemic obstacles to it that I'm not aware of, I don't know. That's just that's a guess on my part. And I hope that they are taking steps internally to meet some of these deficits that have been identified by the board and on which we've taken action. But I'm very concerned about the fact that they're out of compliance, even while in the midst of warning that they have become out of compliance with their charter agreement related to their number of board members. As you know, the way that the board functions has been to me a very important point in their meeting the deficits on their procurement process. And in fact, this board voted to include that as something that they needed to fix as they went forward and as we put them on warning. And it's very important, I think, that they're in compliance with their charter. Right now, their charter says 7 members. At some point, they may determine to ask, to vote that it be increased, and then to ask that that be something that we consent to, and because we're part of that bilateral agreement for their charter. And my guess is it's likely we would consent, but that has not been accomplished. And so with, Chair, with your and the board's leave, I would like to make a motion.
I think that's in order for a previous agenda item that we haven't moved on yet, so yes, go ahead and make a motion.
I would like to move that a board member, because it's my understanding that Vanguard has 8 board members right now and their charter says 7. So going back, I would like to move that a board member be removed from Vanguard Academy's local board based on a perceived conflict as recommended by staff until such a time, or in perpetuity, or until such a time as they may properly amend their charter agreement with the State Charter School Board.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'd love to second that.
Okay, Member Smith seconded. Member Phillips made the motion. Discussion to the motion.
I'd like to just say that I support this motion. I feel like, I'm sorry, you didn't call on me. You can't see me in the corner. I support this motion. I think it is to help the school. It's not punitive in any way, but we can help them to be in compliance with their charter. We can help them solve some of their problems with the conflicted nature of some of their board issues, especially if staff works to identify a board member that would be perhaps the most conflicted one, right? The one who is the most problematic. I think it ultimately works for the school's ongoing success and in no way is harmful to them.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion to the motion? Director Lambert?
Just a clarifying question. You said a board member is, which board member, who decides that? What?
So my motion included that staff recommend to the board which board member be removed based on perceived conflict of interest.
Could I suggest that we might ask them to perhaps give us a list in order from most conflicted to least conflicted, or something like that?
Can I don't know if we can do that. I don't know where we would even start. Stuart, do you think we could do that?
I don't think so. I mean, we could try, but it'd just be a guess. I mean, I don't think so.
I don't know if there's more or less conflicted. I think, yeah, I want to do what you're asking. I'm just trying to think through how.
We also could, if we determine that it is too hard to figure that out on our end, we could allow the school to choose which board members, if that works for you.
Okay, I wonder if our Assistant Attorney General, David Jones, has some input.
Is this on the question of whether you can provide a list of board members that are the level of their conflict?
That, and then also just, I would like to know exactly what it says in statute and rule so that we understand this. Director Lambert has that, and then if you've got it, if you would speak to that, I would appreciate it so that I'm clear on what we can and cannot do.
Jennifer, why don't you read what the statute says? I know that we can, as one of the actions that the board can take when a charter school is not in compliance, we can remove a board member, but I don't know the exact language. And then with regards to listing levels of conflict, I mean, that's just a factual, I don't know if we can do that. I mean, if we have that information, I suppose it could be provided, but.
So I'll read what it says and you can provide the interpretation.
Okay.
So we're looking at 53G-5-501. This is noncompliance rulemaking. And it starts out, if a charter school is found to be out of compliance with the requirements of section 53G-5404 or the charter school's charter agreement, the charter school authorizer shall notify the following in writing that the charter school has a reasonable time to remedy the deficiency except as otherwise provided, and then later on where it's for emergencies, like if there's student safety type issues. And so then it says the charter school governing board, and if they qualify for the credit enhancement program, then also the Utah Charter School Finance Authority, which they have on. And then this is where it says, if the charter school does not remedy the deficiency within the established timeline, the authorizer may, and then it says, subject to the requirements of subsection 4, take one or more of the following actions. And B is a charter school governing board member. Now, under 4, it's talking about, again, notifying the Utah Charter School Finance Authority if they have credit enhanced bonds, which is not applicable here.
So it seems like
Okay.
maybe we would want to withdraw this motion and notify the school that they are out of compliance with their charter with the addition of extra board members, and let them know that they have a reasonable period of time, whatever that might be. Okay.
That's
But-
correct.
Okay. So if they've already had a reasonable period of time, which they have, right, then we are okay to proceed.
Yes, Member Phillips.
However, in considering the motion, I wonder if rather than have staff make a recommendation and have it just be sort of pro forma done, that we have staff make a recommendation in working with the school over this month and bring it back to consent agenda in our meeting in May, so that we have the last word on who that board member is in our next board meeting, based on a recommendation from the staff for specific reasons. So in other words, ultimately, the board makes the decision on the board member after a recommendation from staff, which could be put on the consent agenda if a motion such as this were to be approved in this meeting.
Director Lambert?
I guess we would like, if there's a little more direction, I can tell you kind of knee-jerk reaction would probably be, we would recommend by position. So like the board chair or, someone that, in terms of their title, that's probably what we would recommend, because I'm not sure, we've really only had interaction with one board member. And we would not recommend that she be removed because she's the only interaction that we've had or the only response from the board. But the other board members, we quite frankly don't know. They haven't responded. I don't know if they've even been in board meetings when we've asked them to come and present. So I think that if we were to give you any recommendation, it would just be basically based on title, and probably the one that we would first go to or think about is board chair, if you would want that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've got one other point.
Oh.
If they don't correct this deficiency within the timeline that you provide them, you not only can remove a board member, you can appoint a governing board member.
Okay.
That's what the statute says.
I wonder
But
if we can.
you are limited, what this charter says is how many they have, so.
Right. I'm wondering, it's really good to go back to statute so that we have the language that we need to make sure that we're doing things appropriately. I wonder if staff can speak to whether or not all of those items have been properly noticed to the school, including the timeline.
So I'm trying to remember, I don't think we put any timelines for this in the warning letter. Is that correct?
That's correct, we did not.
And in terms of letting them know that if this is the way, so Stuart read that my email response to them, and that happened this month, so it hasn't even been a full month, where it said if this is the way that they want to resolve it, there's 3 things that need to happen. That I don't know, in looking at the law, if we've given a solid timeline yet. Maybe that's something that could maybe done it instead. I don't know. That is something that's making me a little nervous when I read the statute.
What do you think, Member Phillips?
Well, we had directed them, when the school was put on warning, we had directed them to ensure that there were enough board members who were non-conflicted, that when those who are conflicted needed to recuse themselves from a vote or a discussion, that there would be remaining enough members to make a decision who were non-conflicted. That certainly was a message given to them many, many months ago. Their response has been to add a board member in violation of their charter and the number of members on it, as opposed to actually replacing board members within their institution who are non-conflicted. So, in my opinion, they've had plenty of time to address an issue that, and their non-compliance with not only that particular deficit in warning, but instead to add members, or at least one member that we know of, who may or may not be conflicted, instead of actually creating a situation where some of the conflicted members have been replaced, seems to me to justify a motion like this. And the second thing I would suggest is that we have a board chair potentially, or board leadership potentially on that board, who is addressing a core deficit in a way that is ineffective and is out of compliance with their charter. That is to say, to add additional members which are not part of the charter. So I think what we're seeing here is good justification for removing the board chair, frankly, because we have a board chair who's not leading this board toward a resolution of the deficit discovered in advance of the warning that was issued by this board. And so I do think that we're within our rights here.
Would you
Okay,
like to
further
restate your
discussion
motion?
to the motion?
Perhaps
We're
you might
doing-
like to change the motion so that it addresses the board chair. Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's continue our discussion, and then if we want to do that, we can do that next. Other board members, how are we feeling about this?
My only feeling on this particular motion is that we should probably vote it down and start over with a new motion at least.
Okay. No further discussion. All in favor of this motion, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, this motion fails, and we will go back to you, Member Phillips.
I move that the board chair of Vanguard be removed. May I ask for a point of clarification before this? I know that the law suggests that we can remove up to a year, but we don't necessarily have to. Is that correct? That the law gives us the right to remove a member for up to a year, but it doesn't require us to do so. Is that correct?
Let's
I'm-
have Assistant Attorney General.
So under 53G 5501, it talks about that you have the authorizer may do one of a number of things. So it may remove a charter school governing board member. It doesn't give a time frame on there. And you can appoint one unless
It's later on.
it's further on.
It's in
For a period up to, the authorizer may prohibit the charter school governing board from removing an appointment for up to a period of 1 year. Let me go back to the very beginning of this statute, because I think if whatever motion you have complies with the statute, then you have a really good defense that it's valid. And the statute says that if the charter school is found to be out of compliance with certain requirements of a previous statute, or if it's charter agreement, and we know it's out of compliance with its charter agreement because they've tried to have 8 instead of 7 board members, then you can do certain things. But you have to give them notice of that deficiency beforehand and provide them time to correct the deficiency. So whatever motion you have really needs to be couched in those terms first, and then if they don't correct the deficiency within a certain period of time, then there are certain options you have under statute as to how you would correct the deficiency. And your argument that you've given them notice in the past is a good and valid argument. It's just, I'm saying that if you comply strictly with the statute now, you get rid of any argument that it's not in compliance.
Member Phillips?
Given that, even though I think that we are in solid ground making this motion and even passing it as a board, if that is the board's will, I think just for the sake of due process in particular, which is dear to me, as you know, and just to ensure that there isn't vagueness on our part in either what we're doing or what we're expecting, I'm not going to make a motion today, but I hope that that this sends a signal to the school of at least one board member who's willing to make a motion to remove a board chair if this isn't taken seriously and corrected quickly, because it is not a hard thing to correct. It can be done in a single board meeting.
Member Phillips? May I ask a clarifying question? If we were to take action today, could we make a motion to direct staff to follow statute to inform Vanguard that
Yes.
they are hereby noticed? And
Sure, yes.
is that, I don't know if that's something that we can do or not.
So you're saying we could pass a motion to remove a board member if they're.
No, just to start the process, to follow what it says in the steps that it says in statute.
Suggestion?
Yes.
Maybe what the board may want to consider, since there's already a warning status and a warning letter, to maybe consider adding this concern to that warning letter and have staff send that written notice to the Vanguard governing board of the concerns, and you can list those, what specific concerns it would be.
I would like to, I also think if we do that, we should make sure to put a very short timeline on getting themselves back to the correct number of board members.
And even further clarification, whatever motion you want, you could have a short time frame. You could, as a board, you could direct staff to do the following: provide notice of this deficiency to the charter school, and then the deficiency has to be corrected within 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, a reasonable time frame. But you could set what that reasonable time frame is if you want.
Okay, thank you for your input on that. You want to go again?
And I'm open to suggestion here. I hope that I'm gathering all the advice that's been given. I move that staff initiate, first of all, let me start over. I move that this board directs staff to include as part of the identified deficits in the warning status for Vanguard Academy, the non-compliance with their charter agreement in having 8 members of their board of directors. I further move, as part of this motion, that this board directs staff to initiate a notice and timeline related to this non-compliance of, should we specify the time? Of 30 days in which to become compliant, with the understanding that the board is likely to take strong measures if this is not accomplished within the time frame given.
Okay, do we have a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Phillips, a second by Member Smith. I'm just looking at 30 days and whether that puts us before or after our May board meeting.
I think having seconded it, I would favor a shorter timeline, like perhaps 14 days, which would definitely put it before our next board meeting.
So one thing I would suspect the school how they would want to address this is to update or request that we approve their charter agreement match to what they've already approved in their bylaws. And if that is the case, I'm just looking at, today is the 14th, our next meeting is on the 12th. So it's 28 days. If we do it shorter, and this is the way that they want to resolve it, they would not be able to resolve it in that time frame. Is that?
I would think that we could make sure of a couple things. One, it's very easy to remove a board member and do it pending, and then they can reappoint someone after they get an approved change. It's almost a no-brainer, right? We're not going to let you continue to function with the wrong number of board members until you have properly adjusted what that number of board members is, right? Well, and the other thing would be, I can't remember because it's late and I'm tired.
Okay, further discussion to the motion? Yes, will you restate the motion, please?
I'll go a second time and hope that, do we need to vote it down? Change it. Okay, so I didn't write it down. So I'll just restate it, but hopefully it'll be, okay. Yeah, so the motion is to first of all, the motion is, first of all, I'm trying to remember the very first part. Okay, thank you.
Down.
Okay, the very first part, yeah.
The basic gist of it is to include in the current warning the non-compliance with the charter agreement, have staff send notice and a timeline, with that timeline being 30 days to become compliant. So that is the motion that's on the table.
Okay, further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. At this point, we'll move on to our next agenda item. We welcome Canyon Grove Academy. Mr. Cannell will be providing an update. Is that accurate? Yes. Okay. And then we'll take it from there.
Thank you. Purpose today is give an update on Canyon Grove Academy's warning status. CGA was placed on warning for the purpose of monitoring, refinement, compliance of the school's model related to teacher supervision and learning, monitoring and recording of attendance, as well as academic achievement. The State Charter School Board requires that CGA confirm the following to show compliance with this letter. One, that the current CGA model meets law and requirements for public education. Two, that CGA monitors and tracks attendance through a combination of attendance validated and learner validated measures as required by code. And then also that CGA students demonstrate improved academic achievement. CGA was given a number of terms. The first term was to demonstrate that teachers are purposefully directing students' learning by producing the following. And it's a little bit of a list, but teacher developed curriculum, teacher developed and selected formative assessments, systems and examples of teacher-student and teacher-parent communication, teacher developed and selected summative assessments, scheduled and type of instruction by quarter or term, and then teacher tracking of students' progress towards their individual plans as per CGA's model. Second term that would prove this letter as well was that CGA must demonstrate that the school has a system that monitors and tracks attendance through a combination of attendance validated and learner validated measures. That system needed to reflect the school's blended model. It needed to be fully implemented and used reliably by teachers and staff to monitor and monitored by administration. The system needed to provide information to USB student information systems, and the system must have had the capacity to produce an attendance record for individual students, as well as membership records for purposes of monitoring and tracking as needed. CGA provided the State Charter School Board with the required documents and information that proved to us that they met these first two terms. And so on November 10th, 2021, an update to the warning letter was presented to this board, placed on consent, and the State Charter School Board voted to affirm that these changes had been accomplished. So since November 10th, 2021, CGA has also made a number of progressions towards meeting the remaining terms of their letter, and we'd like to take you through those now. The third term of the letter was to demonstrate substantive improvements in academic achievement. CGA needed to accomplish the following: be in the top half of proficiency in all three subjects, math, English language, and science, as stated on the gateway for similar schools. They needed to have 50% of their students meet their individual growth targets for both fall in reading and math by the spring administration of their NWEA test. In terms of progress on this report, you can see on this graph here to the right that CGA has not showed progress on this term. The numbers you'll see under ELA, not in the parentheses, but the ones outside the parentheses, show you how many schools CGA is above in each of those subjects from 2017 to 2021. However, we did notice that in looking at their proficiency trend, if you look from 2019 to 2021, you'll notice that their overall proficiency did increase in all three subject areas. For the NWEA test, we also found that there was not enough progress on this term. You notice from 2019 to 2020 to 2021 that progress was not made in meeting this term. Term number 4 was that at the conclusion of mentoring with Ed Direction, CGA would provide a plan of ongoing school improvement that reflected the recommendations given by their mentor. Term number 5 was that CGA needed to use data to develop their instruction and create interventions and demonstrate that data was shaping their teaching and instruction. And term number 6 was that CGA was out of compliance with their charter agreement, having over-enrolled above their maximum to be over that 3% buffer, which was allowed by the State Charter School Board. Terms 4 and 5, CGA provided the plan that they created with their mentor to staff. We reviewed this plan and found this plan to meet the needs and the terms of this warning letter. We also found that the plan incorporated data, which would have met term number 5 as well. Term number 6, on 3/7/2022, we verified after CGA alerted us that their enrollment had come into the correct buffer zone, that they were now at 655, their max being 648, which left them within that 3% buffer zone, being in line with their max enrollment. So in summary, CGA has met all but their academic terms of the warning letter, and they are seeking a resolve to their warning status and are here to answer any of the board's questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Cannell. We appreciate that. Thank you for being here, Canyon Grove. If you'll just introduce yourselves, then we'll turn it to board members to ask you questions.
This is Josh Daniels. I'm the board chair for Canyon Grove Academy.
Kim Goetz, Executive Director.
Welcome. Okay, board members, to you for questions of staff or of Canyon Grove. Go ahead, Member Phillips.
So this is to either of you, and maybe it's better placed to Director Goetz. I know you've, working with your mentor, you've done a lot to improve the systems that potentially improve academics, because I know, warning is a short period of time, a year plus now, and a lot of systemic changes have been made, which during COVID, and also just because systemic changes take a long time to kind of demonstrate academic improvement. I would love to hear some of the things you feel are most effective in what you've changed in your systems in an effort to improve academics, even though that's in one metric it's trending up, and then another one it's a little bit flat, but these last 2 years have been a little flat for schools. So I'd love to hear about the systemic changes you feel have academic potential.
Thank you for the question. The biggest area that we've targeted is our early literacy. We felt that that was the most important place to target initially, and so that's where we targeted. Our early literacy scores, they increased, sorry Josh, they increased from just before COVID. We barely hit the 60% target. And then our last one last year, our early literacy was at 77%. And so we can see that the area that we really targeted has really increased. And then we're hoping to take everything we've done there and apply it to math so we can have that same kind of growth with math. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, it took us 3 years. We didn't just work on it during COVID. We've been working on that for 3 years to get that to improve. And I think the biggest thing that we've done is really we've really targeted the Tier 2. And we've really taken all that data and really targeted and had lots of small group with the kids, whether it's small group in person or via Zoom, so they can really hit the need where it's at. You're welcome.
Additional questions from board members? Okay, go ahead, Member Smith.
I just wanted to know if you as a school have anything else you'd like to tell us about the data or anything else you feel is important for us to know.
I mean, I think it's important to understand that the goals or standards set out in the warning letter and kind of talking about comparing our school to other schools, as I understand the comparison methodology, it's comparing Canyon Grove to other charter schools that are physically located near Canyon Grove Academy. Is it schools similar to Canyon Grove in terms of type of school or
Let me ask
demographic?
Director Lambert to clarify that.
Okay, great.
So USB produces on the data gateway a compare schools function. So it looks at the students coming in. So what are the background demographics? And so it compares schools to similar schools. And that's what, if you go to the compare school function, it uses a Gower score index to be able to come up with the comparable schools.
Just to clarify, are you saying it compares them to demographically similar schools?
Hold on just a second, Member Smith. Let's let Director Lambert finish, and then you can ask your question.
It is based on demographics. If you look at the schools that Canyon Grove is currently being compared against, there are some schools that are very similar in model to the school.
Yeah, go ahead.
As I'm remembering the discussions leading up to the warning status, one of the things we were most concerned about as a board, as expressed in those public meetings, was the areas where either we couldn't verify that the school was in compliance with certain statutes. They may have been or may not. It was difficult to verify, or they weren't in compliance. And I want to commend you for bringing this very unique model into compliance. It's a model that really pushes the envelope on a few things, which is what charters are about, frankly, and yet a difficult one to keep within the parameters required by statute for public monies, public ed. And so much of our discussion at that time centered around that, although, of course, we always want academics to improve and the systems to support good achievement and outcome. I'm very pleased to see that those areas of initial and high concern have been resolved, and that you have systems in place that promise continuing academic improvement for your students and academic achievement. And so I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, any other questions of staff or of Canyon Grove? Go right ahead.
I move that Canyon Grove Academy be removed from warning at this time, given the record of addressing the deficiencies and the progress toward good systems that support academic achievement.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Member Smith seconded. Member Phillips made the motion. Any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to you, Canyon Grove. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last agenda item is a I did not see that. Okay. We will now have Amber Hellstrom provide us some UCAP training, and then we'll move to our last agenda item. Yes, and Director Lambert is going to give us an overview first.
So I just want to thank Amber Hellstrom. You guys probably don't get to see her very much. She is our IT developer. I sometimes say she's our IT director. She directs our IT section of one. But it's pretty impressive what she has done. So this UCAP that you're going to see and that you may, well, hopefully already see, because there's a lot in there, that she has been developing basically single-handedly, and normally you would have multiple developers on such a project. What she has done most recently is something exciting that we're moving towards that's going to be for you as board members. So we wanted to kind of update the way that we do board meetings and post agendas and do all that. She has developed what normally boards go and spend quite a bit of money to contract for someone to do, but she has developed in UCAP a way that we will be able to have the agendas in here, and we can post directly to our website from UCAP. For example, right now, if you look on our website and you go to the Charter Schools directory, that actually is UCAP. And so we already are doing that for some things, but she's going to show you how it's going to look. We're right now doing kind of duplicate processes, and we probably will for another month, but we're hoping that this will be completely kind of transitioned over beginning in June. And so you will be able to access the agenda and the documents through UCAP, or you can do from the website. What we will probably not do, unless you request specifically, we won't kill trees anymore. We will just have things electronically. We do realize sometimes there's challenges in getting on the internet. So if you do want paper documents, we can provide that for you individually. But this is what we're moving towards, and I'm just really excited. But we wanted to make sure you all have access and usernames into UCAP, but you may not realize it. So Amber's going to show you just how to get into it, and then also about the new, what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Jennifer just wanted me first to get everyone in. So if you don't remember your username, or if you don't remember your password, just raise your hand. Okay, we got to take her right here. Who wants Cynthia?
We have staff that have volunteered to come help. So those staff that have agreed to help, please.
So Greg's going to help you. Does anyone else need help?
William, do you know how, can you help Michelle? Yeah. So.
And then I asked like what level and stuff again. All right, so everyone that does know it, just go to that website and log in. If you're not able to log in, just raise your hand and we'll get someone else on staff to get you in. We'll get you.
She's going to get us afterwards.
Yeah, and she wants one too. Do you want to do both?
Do his first. And for those of you who are already in, you can kind of just play around on it. You've got the hamburger button in the upper left-hand corner. Those are the three things that gives you a lot of drop-down things. And what you can do is you can look at, like we have all of the schools, we have their missions and visions, you know, and some basic data on there so that you don't have to go to other sites. We have it all put in one place. There's also documents there, so you can get their charter agreement is in there. So this is where we're trying to move towards so that there's one repository for the information. Don't know, Jenna, can you come help Brian?
Does anyone need this page up anymore? Okay. All right, so I guess I'll just start. It won't take very long, but we really just want the board. Well, I know our staff uses UCAP heavily, they're probably in there daily. But we want the board to start to use this more and more too. So Jennifer did come to me and she's like, how can we get this board binder into UCAP? And so I took one of the board binders, studied it a little bit, and then I also researched USB Way, and then that's how I came up with my design and developed it. So if you log in, you'll get a few extra things. If you don't log in, this is what everyone sees. If you go to the top left, you got the hamburger button, and that's the main menu. So if you log in, you'll see more items on that list and more things to look at. But for today, we're just going to SESB board meetings. And again, if you log in as a board member, you'll get an extra thing in the board meeting too. Thought I clicked it, but now I clicked it. Okay. I coded it so that it will first check to see if there's a meeting coming up. So since there's a meeting today, it loaded that right off the bat. So 4/14/2022. If there wasn't a meeting coming up, then it would check and see if there's a meeting recently, and it would load that one right off the bat. But you're welcome to view past. This is the way you can view past meetings and get all the information you need to. So you just use that drop down, and eventually there's going to be this huge long list of dates. For board meetings that were not inputted, right now they're inputted by Joanne. So thank you, Joanne, for doing all this work. She's my tester too. For the meetings that are starting today, like the meetings before today, you can still go to this link right here that's Find Archived Meetings, click on that, and it'll take you to where we used to put the board stuff. All right. So if you scroll down, you have your agenda, your consent calendar, and your minutes. If you're logged in as a board member, you'll have one extra thing that's just the board's letter. So the board letter is not available to everyone. Just go ahead and click on those. Okay, and if you notice, like like today, while you were doing your meeting today, I was actually following along with this agenda, and I was clicking on the links and making sure they were working, and it's just an organized way of having like your documents right with the agenda item. So I know with the binder you'd have to flip to the tab, but now it's like just right there. Click on it. And then we also added the ability to add links too. So for board goals, if you clicked on that, it would actually take you to your goals. And the more and more we use this, and the more we like see if we need something else, we can add stuff later. If we're not using stuff, take it off.
So what this will do in the future, you can log into UCAP, and then you can also look at, you know, a school's mission, or, you know, you can get other information at the same time. Or if you don't want to log into UCAP for whatever reason, you could just go to our public website and just see the same thing there and just get all of the links. But what we like is it's all in one place so that you aren't going back and forth. So right now, if I go to our website, I can open the agenda, but then I also need to have go back to the main page and to open up all the links. This puts it all in one place.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have access to, I just remember what I was able to access as a director about schools. Is there, are we able to look at schools that we're thinking about, maybe making decisions about?
Yeah, I can show you where to
Okay,
find
that'd be
that.
awesome.
So what you're used to as a director, you now basically have for all schools.
To show how to get there? Okay, just a second. So on the main page, there are a lot of quick links. So like you can look on, and if you're using something like frequently, the school profiles, I think what you're looking for. So you would click in there, but it's also everything's in the main menu, like organized, and school profiles are right here too. And yeah, you can see info on any school you want. Yeah, play around with UCAP.
I just, again, want to personally thank Amber for all her amazing work and that what she's been able to do without a team. But that is what we have to present on this as staff, and so we're welcome if there's any questions.
Well, I don't have a question, but I would like to say thank you to Amber, because I am not a paper person. I like having everything online, but having to have 17 tabs open to have the agenda and all of the assorted documents along with it I'm glad that we will not have to do that anymore now that I have 2 meetings left, so.
You're welcome, and yeah, I love this kind of stuff. It's a fun job, so I love it, so.
Well, I think it touches the organizational gurus present in probably most of us here, particularly me and Cindy. So thank you for your hard work on this. I know how much effort it takes, and I can't believe you've done this all by yourself, and we really appreciate it. It will make our board function more smoothly, so thank you. Any other comments or questions from board members? Okay. Now we will move to Mr. Cannell's going to give us a complaint/compliance report as our remediation specialist.
Thank you. Here is our SY 2022 oversight report. So just want to start off giving a little background, our oversight team works to effectuate the mission and vision of the State Charter School Board. We carry out the statutory duty to ensure the schools adhere to federal law, state law, and the school's individual chartered contract. You can find that in Utah Code 53G-5-205. As part of that, we also honored the individualism and autonomy of our charter schools. And so we do prefer that complaints are handled at the lowest level possible, that being the individual teacher, director, the own school's individual board, and lastly, the State Charter School Board. However, due to Utah Code, we also have duties to investigate any of the following: financial mismanagement, fraud, student safety, the welfare of students, school performance, fidelity to charter agreements, compliance with the law, as well as when all lower levels of governance have been exhausted, or the next level or next recourse. The oversight team consists of 2 members, myself and Jenna Magnetti, and complaints are handled by the oversight team. Compliance monitoring is shared between the finance team and the oversight team, and on occasion, also the performance team. All R&Rs that are recommended for remediation are reviewed not only by the person doing the investigation, but also the portfolio manager for that school that's assigned to the school. And should recommendations be made for remediation, that investigation is also reviewed again by Director Lambert for final approval. I just wanted to take you guys through a year's worth of our work. We normally give this presentation in July, but we're changing things up. And so to get you a year, I went back to April 2021 until last month, March 2022. And so I just kind of wanted to show you what it looked like. You'll see the blue color. There are all the, by month, are all the complaints that were opened, or all the R&Rs that were open, so that includes complaints and compliance monitoring. And all the ones in the golden color are the ones that we closed by month. And so there's some notable peaks here you'll notice. First one I'd like to highlight is in May, that 48 number, we had our financial risk audit, where the finance team went through and looked at our schools, determined which ones would be most at risk. And so that resulted in a number of R&Rs. And it's important to know that this isn't remediation right here. This is just the investigations into what we're looking at. So this is the financial risk audit.
Just for reminding, and anyone maybe listening who doesn't know our processes, there's always been a discussion in authorizing about, do you have automatic triggers or not? And a while ago, we made the decision that no, we were not going to have automatic triggers, that we have metrics, but just because someone misses a metric doesn't automatically trigger a notice of concern or something. What we do is we review and research it to see if it really truly is a concern, or if there's other factors going on that would cause us not to have a concern of that. And so that's what Greg is talking about in terms of R&Rs. And I just really wanted to bring that out because that's not always well understood by everyone that listens.
Thank you, Director Lambert. In fact, most of our work is just in the review and research, and the percentage, as you'll see later on, of those that go to remediation is actually quite small compared to the percentage of actual R&Rs that we do. The second bump that I'd like to draw your attention to, and you'll notice I'm just drawing attention to the blue ones because that's where we open, and we'll just pat ourselves on the back for all the golden ones that have high bumps as well. But you'll see they kind of they correlate between, you'll have a high bump of blue 1 month, and then pretty soon afterwards, you'll have a high bump of the golden as well. So these are the annual certifications. This happens every year in May, and by the time all the R&Rs are closed out and entered in by the UCAP system, we get them around the July period. Next bump is enrollment. Our enrollment metrics are triggered by UCAP, and so we have a number of R&Rs. If any school is missing an enrollment metric, we go ahead and look into that and see if there's any reason that we should have a concern. And most of the time, they're easily resolved, and we only send a few notice of concerns out for those usually. The OPMA campaign is probably our biggest bump that we've had. We did a number, every single school that was in this OPMA campaign was entered into the R&R, so you see 101, that's about the number of LEAs that we have. And so that was a big push and resulted in a number of R&Rs, and you'll notice that in January, there was also a record number of R&Rs closed out. And then lastly, in February is when we get all the audited financial statements, and so you'll see another bump in our R&R processes there. So there's an important distinction between both compliance monitoring and complaints, and I'll talk to you about compliance monitoring here first. We consider compliance monitoring R&Rs those generated internally, so by SESB board members or SESB staff. These can be the annual certifications, our enrollment metrics, the financial metrics, any campaigns that we've designated, or any other items found while reviewing schools, whether that be in a comprehensive review or just in our own time reviewing schools. And so we consider those compliance monitoring. You can kind of see the number of compliance again, December, that's our campaign right there, so that's a big jump. Complaints, on the other hand, are anything initiated outside by an outside entity. So if it's not a SESB member finding it, this would be considered a complaint. Those can be generated from the public. In fact, that's usually where they come from. Our second highest would be USBE internal audit, and then any other organizations that would give us some kind of complaint about our schools. And so you'll see, if you notice, looking at the graph here to the left, and I'll switch back, and the graph to the right, that the majority of our work is done in looking at the complaints, although this graph does somewhat throw it off with the campaign that we initiated this year in December.
So because it was our first campaign, we were trying to figure out how do we handle this? And since we looked at every school, we entered an R&R for every school. We're not going to do that again because it was I don't know, it was paperwork. It's not really real. So those bars really are not really reflective of what was happening. We definitely are handling it different going forward, but yes, so Greg is correct in pointing that out.
But should you need a reference for our raises coming up, then you can take a look at this graph right here. You can see we opened 126 complaints during the April 2021 to March 2022, and we closed 85. So they are coming in faster than we can close them out. And that's due to the amount of research it takes on complaints. Some complaints are easy. If it's something about OPMA where all we have to do is check the Open and Public Meetings website to see if somebody's posted minutes or not, that can be done in a day or two. However, larger ones that we have to do more research and we have to talk back and forth both with the complainants and the school, those tend to take a little bit longer. But it's good to have another member on the oversight team, and that has definitely been helping out. So here's is all by the numbers. So you can see the percentages I have in parentheses next to each one. That is the number of open complaints to the total number of R&Rs that we had opened this year. So you see that complaints take up about 35% of our work. Compliance monitoring takes up 43%. Notice concerns of those that we look at are only 25% of the total R&Rs, and warnings are only 1%. You can see in the graphs down to the right are completion being the closed and those still remaining open as the blue. And sorry, completion is the golden. We have been recognized by the greater public for our work and oversight, and so I wanted to show the State Charter School Board that people are taking notice. In a recent both article and program put on by KUTV, they praised the State Charter School Board for the increase in the oversight that has occurred since 2019. In their quote in the article, it says, "The perception that charter schools operate in a Wild West-style arena free of oversight is changing." And then they go on to talk more about that and how we've been issuing more letters of remediation since 2019. And so a little pat on our backs that people are taking notice, that we are taking our job seriously to protect the students as both their education as well as the public dollar. And I'm happy to take any questions, should you have any on our oversight.
Any questions of Mr. Cannell? Yes, Member Smith?
It makes me tired just listening to all of that investigation. So thank you so much for the great work you guys do.
Thank you.
Member Phillips?
I also just want to thank you for all that work and your team, as well as the work that staff does in general. I mean, it's a lot of LEAs, a lot of information to, gather and then review. And I also think it is a function of the oversight framework and the support framework that the State Charter School Board has put together to properly emphasize certain aspects of our statutory obligation, but to do it in a way that preserves the goodwill of the schools that we're helping to support and monitoring. Most of the time, as these statistics show, the schools have a minor concern which can be resolved quickly through education and support, and it means that we get a school right back on track. And that's so much better than sort of a public dragging through the mud, which is completely unnecessary. And so I greatly appreciate this board's emphasis on support, which actually comes by way of the research and review, as opposed to placing schools on warning and probation, except in extreme circumstances. So thank you as well to the board and leadership for that focus.
Thank you, and I would say thank you to you for your work legislatively to expand our toolbox so that we have additional ways of supporting our schools. Any other comments? Director Lambert, go ahead.
So I just want to give another kudos. So, just like I was saying, Amber is the director of one for quite a while. So what you saw reflects actually two kind of areas within staff. You have the finance team, which is a team of two, so it's double. And then you have Greg, who was presenting for quite a while. He was a team of one, and so he was answering all the complaints and doing that by himself. We were fortunate enough to be able to move around within staff. And luckily, Jenna stepped up and has been a great addition to this and really been able to help Greg. So I just want to thank them. I also just want to reiterate these numbers because what gets presented to you guys and often is out there in the public are when the not happy stories, when the oversight isn't maybe working as well. But the reality is the vast majority of the time, it's working wonderful. And what we find with our schools is that they want to do good. They want to succeed. They want the same things that we want. And so they want to address problems. And a lot of times it is about just letting them know, and it's about training. And sometimes, well, maybe more than sometimes, what may look like a problem initially, we find out actually isn't. And so I just want to get that on record because a lot of times people focus on the few examples that maybe aren't the easy ones, but that's the minority.
I really appreciate those comments as well. And I'm so glad, Amber, that I can pull up the PowerPoint on my own screen because that one's really far away. And if I'm looking at this one, my back is to everybody. So I really appreciate everything that you've done in UCAP and all of the work that you and Jenna have done as well. So thank you very much for that. I failed to thank all of our people who were here today at the beginning of the meeting. So David, we're so glad that you're here as our AAG, and Board Member Hymas, our USBE representative. We also have Deputy Superintendent Stallings who joined us, and we're happy that she's here. And a huge thank you to all of our staff. You help our our schools and you help our executive director. And at the end of the day, we're all working to make sure that students are well served. So thank you for your hard work. And then finally, to my fellow board members, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here doing this volunteer position, again, in order to elevate education across the state of Utah and to make our charter schools places where Utah students can come and learn, and your volunteer time today. Now I will just look for one final motion.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Member Spiker.
I'll make a motion to end our board meeting today.
Okay, motion to dismiss. We are all good.